Okay, welcome to the show, everybody. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Black Lives Matter, but it sounds like we're going to talk about more movements as a whole. You know, more of the zeitgeist as a whole. And we have a couple guests on. We have Maricella Clark, and we have Jozette Luke, and they're in Modesto, California, correct?
Modesto.
Modesto. All right. And
Modesto. May.
yeah, so they're gonna we're just gonna have kind of an open-ended conversation. We're not gonna get challenging with it or anything. I don't think there's a time and place.
Well, there's an
for that
interesting
tonight.
backstory to it all. I'm very amused by our backstory, how we met. So I'm at work, I'm just shooting the shit with people on Facebook, and there was an incident that occurred where a 17-year-old went Rambo at one of these Antifa events where Black Lives Matters was trying to protest, and then it sounds like the communists came in behind him and started trouble causing, and people got shot and killed and hurt. So the events were not completely clear at the moment. So of course, there's a lot of banter going back and forth, and Mari and I we had it out for a little while.
Yeah, a little conversation.
And unfortunately, because the events weren't clear, I mean, it couldn't really go anywhere. But it was fun going back and forth.
Yeah.
Now Mari called me on Facebook. And that was the first time someone's ever done that. I didn't even know you could do that. So she's calling me on Facebook. I'm like, who is this? And
She went right for it.
yeah, she went right for the jugular. I loved
jugular.
it. That was the first time I've ever experienced that on Facebook. So I said, you know what?
Yeah.
You sound like a logical, rational human being, and why don't you come on the show? So that's how we got this show. And on this show, we've had other guests. Well, let's say we've had attempts at other guests to talk about Black Lives Matters before, but I don't know. They fell through. They didn't come through. It was unfortunate. We look kind of silly on the show talking to ourselves about it.
Yeah, a couple of white guys, just reading off the checklist on the Black Lives Matter Utah website, and
So thank you for coming on the show, having
No problem.
having
No problem.
the boldness to just hey, these guys are strangers. They want to talk on the internet instead of debate over Facebook. And this is a conversation that what we say sticks. So it's kind of like you can't really back out of what you say on a podcast. This is as they say, this is graffiti on the walls of history. So whatever we say today, that's there.
yeah, it's there. Excuse me while I grab the dog.
Dozer.
Yeah. Just go ahead and keep chatting it up, Dave.
All right. So I don't know. Why don't you two tell us both about yourselves? Because I mean, you're kind of the stars of the show.
Do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so let me see. Growing up, I was born in Sacramento, California. Grew up in Missouri for a little bit, beginning part of my life. Moved back and forth from Missouri, California.
We're at Missouri.
Camdenton,
Where's that at?
Camdenton, Missouri. I know it's in the middle somewhere. I haven't been there in a minute.
Yeah.
Grew up there, went to elementary school and all of that. Only Black person in my school. I didn't really experience anything differentiating from like racism or anything, or I didn't notice it or anything.
Yeah, and also at that age, I don't know. I don't see. Well, maybe I don't know. I wouldn't think children at that age would really. They would just care if you're fun to play with. How's
Yeah.
how's your
I
swing set
definitely
skills?
experienced racism as a young child.
Did you?
So, yeah, definitely was told that. And I mean, you can see from my skin complexion, I'm very light still. I feel like in the Black community, when we talk about people being casted for movies or shows or things like that, they typically go for more light-skinned Black people because it's more appealing than and easier to get by. So I
I
feel
don't
like
know. I'm the ugliest person on this screen right now, so let's just lay it out
So
you guys are fine.
even just being this light and growing up, still, kids would always tell me that they couldn't play with me because I was black, or
Really?
Seriously.
their parents told them they weren't allowed to talk to me or things like that. And I would come home very, distraught, didn't want to be in my skin. I told my mom all the time. I would tell her to scrub me extra hard in the bath
Oh,
to try to get the brown out of my
did that
skin.
ever
Like,
work?
there was a lot of self hate like planted in you at a very young age. Well, for me, at least. So yeah, it's a journey, and it's very real.
I'm definitely sorry to hear that. That is that is terrible. My story is growing up. All my best friends were Native American, all of them, from the age of, I don't know, diaper on. They were always Native American. Goshoot, Navajo, Apache, all of that. And then my father married a lady who is half Comanche. So, but we live in a predominantly white area. I mean, we're in rural Utah. So, I mean, when you see that, you probably picture temples and guys in white shirts with black ties and little name tags and all that. And you would be right.
You're right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know, so the only African American I knew growing up was a good friend of my dad's. My dad's was an auto body man, and this guy ran a junkyard. So I would go see Joe Moore, I don't know, a couple times a year when we needed parts. And him and his children were essentially, until probably late junior high, the only African Americans I ever witnessed. Just, and I grew up in an even smaller town than we're in now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and
So I had the exact same opposite effect though, with what you guys experienced. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York, and we'd have a black student filter in and out of the school system once in a while. But when they show up, they're always the coolest person in the class. Everybody wants to talk to them because they're different. It's diverse. It's something new. It's always the new person that's different. Always seemed to be the most popular person at the moment in our school. So I don't think we've sure there was a lot of racism in a white area like that in upstate New York, but in high school in those days it wasn't nothing like what it seems like it is today in today's generation.
yeah, the 90s had a special feel to it. You guys don't understand this because you weren't even zygotes yet, but the 90s really,
Good times.
The whole feel about it was, color and gender had almost been erased, and that's how it felt. Like, say a movie came out with a female lead in it, and they reviewed the movie, they just reviewed the movie, and they didn't have to make, no side made a spectacle about a female lead. It's just, was the movie good or not? And same if the lead was, throw it out there, an Indian or an African American or whatever, that was never the point of the review. And nowadays it feels like we've regressed a little bit. Was that a cat that I just saw you lift?
Yeah, her name's Venus. She's a cutie.
Let me show you.
Likes to be
Dozer.
on videos and stuff. Likes being near phones. So
I
like
think-
the first time I actually
Go ahead.
experienced like racism wasn't until like high school times. Well, actually, high school times. I've never. Actually, let me think about that. Actually, I started experiencing more racism when Trump became president. Like, people were more out there and stuff. And like,
Oh, you can curse.
one instance.
Oh yeah, you better not curse.
Yeah, sorry. Went to a dollar store, not recently, but like 2016 time, 2017. Some Arabian, some other from European, was speaking her language. Her son probably stole some candy or something. The manager was speaking to her about it, and some older white woman was in the back talking about go back to your country, and I was like, whoa, relax. And she was just being really hostile towards the woman and not keeping to herself. And that was the first time I ever seen something like that ever happen, like in public. And I was like, what was that, 17, 16 years old? And that was the first time I actually experienced something like that in person.
Okay.
And that's got to be impressionable at that age. I mean, like, I remember when I was 16, I'm thinking about the thoughts I had in my mind rolling around.
No, I don't want to mention them on public
something
podcast.
like that, if that ever happened to me in front of me, I mean, that would be so impressionable at that age. Traumatizing.
I know in high school, I was also president of Black Student Union Club. So for February, it's Black History Month. We start putting up our posters, our decoration, our artifacts, or whatever, showcasing. And I remember the N-word got written on one of the BSU, the hard R got written on one of the BSU posters. And so we took it to administration and we were like, we have cameras all over this high school. Like, go back, look, see who did it, and have some consequences. Nothing ever happened.
That's probably
Social
because
media
it was a star.
really, social media has really changed over time. And for our generation, it was really big being in high school. Everybody's always on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. People would say things from our school on Twitter, screenshot it, take it to school. Nothing would happen. I remember they put her in school suspension until she left school, so she wouldn't have to face any other Black students who saw her comments and stuff like that. So I feel like for me, it's always been there growing up, especially where I'm from.
The girl who said this stuff got put in school suspension.
They put her in school suspension, you could say, during lunch hour, is because that's when everybody was out on school campus.
Oh.
Because we combined to one lunch. So they basically protected her because there was so many people enraged and was like, I can't believe you just called us this, like, wow. So there was no apology, no consequence. It was just like, all right, we're gonna keep her in lunch. She's leaving school anyway. She's moving to a different school, so we're just gonna,
They just kept her isolated.
We'll just keep her in here for a week or two every lunch. Just, I don't know. For me, racism has always been apparent, especially where I'm from. I've always felt it. I've always felt it when I've walked into a room. Usually I'm the only Black person in the room. I've always felt it in high school with my academics. People don't expect me to have good grades. I felt it playing sports. I felt it in college, actually living on the dorm, seen it. I hear it all the time. So
is there a low Black population where you live?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
You could say that. It is predominantly white and Hispanic.
Central Valley.
And what?
But yeah, in Central Valley, it's predominantly white and Hispanic, Latinos. So yeah, I mean, even towards our Latin community out here, racism is very prevalent. So yeah. I feel like I've always felt it. I feel like since Trump's presidency, you see it on social media more. We've held protests out here in a town called Oakdale, and we were met with counter protesters when we actually went, and that was disgusting. I mean, you were called every name in the book. They were told not to walk. Don't walk to your cars by yourself. We'll be waiting for you. They were drinking out on the street publicly, curse names. Assault actually happened. They actually hit one of the BLM protesters that were driving by in a car as they were leaving. It was actually one of the biggest things that happened when all of this started in May. So since then, I feel like it's hard to ignore. And I definitely think that racists in my area, at least, were a lot more quiet. But when you have a president that says the things that he does say on national television, it gives people the comfortability to say those things too. So I would say that people are just more vocal about how they really feel, and they think, it's okay. But that's what we're here for. We're trying to, get conversations started so that we can find a middle ground and start, I don't know if you can fix racism out of a person, but, you can just try to educate as much as you can, and hopefully people come around. And
Well,
yeah.
I know you can't legislate the human heart. That's
Right.
That's proven. But I think racism would have to be fixed like homophobia was fixed. And that's just people knowing someone of a different race, and everybody always trying to present. Well, I'm an individualist. I'm an anarchist individualist. I don't belong to any political party. The closest thing to me would be libertarian. And so I have no dog in the political fight. I don't vote. I haven't voted for 20 years. It's not going to happen.
Wow.
Just because I don't feel like I should. I don't feel like one. All right. To call back to Lysander Spooner, I don't know if you ladies know who that gentleman was.
I don't even think I know who that is.
Anyways, you should look him up sometime. Interesting cat. Anyways, if I need a ruler, I'm not qualified to vote for that ruler. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That means if I'm not smart enough to rule myself, I'm definitely not smart enough to decide who gets to rule me.
Right. I just think that not voting, because, okay, you haven't voted in 20 years, right?
And not in 20
Would you
years.
say that any president that you've had has drastically altered your life? Like the laws and the bills that they've put out.
The president
the thing-
doesn't put out bills. The president
Okay.
shouldn't affect your life. He's an executive. He
Right.
executes
Okay. So the bills that Congress has created and
That the
the
Senate
laws that
creates.
get the okay, so Senate
Uh-huh.
and the ones that Congress go through and approve and meet on and all that, would you say any of those in the last 20 years really affected or altered your life of
Well,
living?
they've cost me a lot in tax money, and they've
Okay.
driven our money into the drink.
I did 20 years
Right.
worth of war.
Yeah.
How about that? That sucked.
Yeah.
Right. So for people of color or women or anybody, it's important you get out and vote, because a lot of times,
But has any laws positively affected your life? Because
if a
here's
law
what I-
might
on
update
student
our laws
loans could
tonight.
get passed, if
Here's-
a law on student loans could get passed, that would probably.
Okay, well, now
positively
here's another
affect me.
question about student
But I've
loans.
only been voting for 2 years, so anything before then is really like
I have no
it is
knowledge.
what it is. I wasn't paying taxes.
Can I-
wasn't, so
I
I
was
can't speak
carefree.
on that.
Can I
But when
take
it
you
comes
guys?
to
Can I take you guys on a little jaunt down history lane? All right, I'm 45 years old. In the 80s, well, it started kind of in the 70s. It actually started in the after World War II, but in the 80s, they opened up, the government got involved with student loans. Now, prior to that, you went to a bank and you said, I want to go to college, and it's going to cost me, back then, probably $13,000 for a 4-year degree. And the bank would say, what are you studying? And what are you studying, Jozette? What's your major?
right now, I'm a human resource management major, but I'm actually going to be changing to probably communications.
Okay, communications. That is a degree that is profitable in the end. So the banks would say, what are you studying? And you would say, I want to be an engineer, a doctor, whatever. And the bank would say, okay, that's a loan that we can give you because you will be able to pay that loan back. But if you're studying one of the, yeah, even so far down as I want to be an arts major, the bank could say, "You parents had better be rich because you'll never be able to pay us back because there's no money in arts major, you know." Or if you want to do one of the theoretical, whatever studies, there's no money in that. There's no jobs. There's none of that.
You'd have to be a university professor in the end.
Yeah. So anyway, so the government got involved, says we're going to back all student loans, and they did that to bring more people into colleges. So the government backs them. You wait about a year, and the colleges notice we've got all these people coming, and they don't give a shit what they study. They get these loans handed out for whatever. So let's advance those departments. So one, it's driven our college educations down. So college education used to be an achievement. Now it's I'm going to go in there and I'm going to study something that doesn't provide. So it's kind of ruined that. And then it's driven the administration of the colleges up. And that's why college prices have gotten so advanced. The government does one thing well, and that's turn gold into shit. The government ruins everything it touches, everything. You've got to remember, whenever you ask the government to get involved, you're asking for one thing. They're going to steal from you to do it, and they're bringing a gun every time. The government is force. It is violence. It's been known as violence forever. That's what it is. So I try to remove the government from my life as much as possible. I don't want the violence in my life, and I definitely don't want to introduce that violence into your life. You young ladies have bright futures ahead of you. I don't want to introduce the government into your lives any more than it already is. I want to actually pull it back from your lives a little bit to ensure that your bright futures stay bright. Does that sound cohesive to you ladies?
It does.
Really does.
It does, but
I'm going to make a couple anarchists tonight. That's great.
um
And there's a couple of black anarchists. Have you ever heard of Maj Touré? Well, he's a libertarian.
No.
Black Guns Matter. He's the Black Guns Matter guy. Just go to my page. It's all over there. And he's just he goes from inner city to inner city teaching firearms, laws, and practice to inner city youth and to inner city individuals.
Yeah, freedom and
and
liberty.
I feel like a lot of Americans agree with wanting less government. I feel like that's one thing that when
They
it comes
do,
to the two main parties don't realize is that nobody wants government in all of their business hovering over.
Unless they're using that government as a cudgel against who they perceive as the other side.
Right.
And both parties are more than willing to say, I will use this cudgel against them.
Right.
And me, I'm willing to say, you guys live your life. I'm going to live my life. We'll get on a show and chat every once in a while. Maybe next time we get on, we'll talk pets. But that's how I want our experience to be. I never want to introduce a cudgel into your life.
So what main questions or or something you don't understand about the Black Lives Matter movement would you have for us? Just because I'm kind of curious.
I'm ready to answer the question.
I'm just curious to see like where you stand on this topic. Per se, because you let us know that you don't vote, and
so I do vote. I try to vote libertarian as often as I possibly can. Probably from the media perspective, they enjoy creating clickbait news. So they'll throw news articles out there before the facts are even out. They want you to click. They want you to be fearful. They want you to be observant of what it is they're saying, and they want you to be divided as a society. That's their goal as media. They want to generate clicks so that they can sponsor advertisers. And I understand that, and I try to look past all these events as they're occurring with this Black Lives Matters movement, because there is a lot of legitimacy for saying, hey, look, the police shouldn't beat us up. I don't care what color you are. If you've ever experienced police brutality for an unjust cause, you will say, hey, that's not right. And it's not. I can speak firsthand on that. I've had my incidences when I was younger. And the one thing that Black Lives Matter has totally got wrong, though, is they're not standing up to the Marxist infiltration and the violence from Antifa the way that they should, or they're not allowing themselves to be portrayed in the media as people that are standing up against that. We're having so many deaths occur in these protests that it's gonna outnumber the killings from the police officers if it already hasn't.
It does. There's about twice as many deaths of from the protests. It might even be more than twice as many than from officer involved shootings this year.
And you're saying these deaths are caused by?
There's definitely
let me break down how I would hold a protest, because I'm a member of a ultra governed society. I would go down to City Hall and I would book a park, and I would hold a fair and a festival at that park, and that's how I would protest. I would try to draw people in, bring them in, invite them in, have people selling food, people with a bouncy house, people selling goods and wares. If you have any local businesses that want to pop up a booth, I would bring them in and show them a positive side.
Would you sell alcohol there?
If they'll let me. You bet my sweet ass I'd sell alcohol. I'd drink all the alcohol too. But I would do that and show them the positive side, because I think when you're blocking traffic, one, I would never do that, because that's a violation of the non-aggression principle. I would never block traffic. That's detaining someone for an innocent person.
Restriction of movement is
detaining. It's just
force.
like if the police stopped any one of us and wanted to rummage through our pockets, they're detaining us. And I would never block traffic. I would have signs and posters made, but invite people in so that when they read them, they're in a happy place. They're getting their bellies filled with barbecue. They're hearing music, whatever. I would bring them in that way. But when it's brought to them in an aggressive way, the only time you're going to get a reaction out of them that's for you is getting a reaction out of fear. And that reaction leaves them the minute they leave your sight.
And that kind of reaction attracts certain type of individuals.
And then that reaction attracts the people. Now, let's say those guys, those counter protesters show up to your festival and they smell that barbecue wafting across their faces. They see them, you're serving. Okay, they won't give you an alcohol permit because you guys are children still. To them, not to me, but to the government. But you guys are serving soda, barbecue, you've got a live band. You're handing out your pamphlets. You're handing out all the stuff that's prepared. Like, hey, look, these are the stats. We need to concentrate on how do we get people to pay attention to these areas. And you're doing it in a positive way. Those protesters, what are they going to do? We hate fun.
The thing is that these protests have been going on for such a long time in our life. Well, since I've been born, even before I was born, it's been going on for years, decades, and people are getting tired of it. That's what I was saying.
wanted to say that.
I see in your eyes.
The way the Civil Rights Act was even
1960s.
passed, it wasn't from. I mean, I get what you're saying.
No, you know how it was passed?
But it was passed when people started going to the streets and they started showing how tired they were. They rushed that bill, and suddenly it was passed.
It was passed because peaceful people showed up and the government inflicted violence on them.
You can call.
And the people who watched it on TV felt bad for the victims. That's how it was passed.
A protest, I've seen so many protests be peaceful just because it's on the street, in the street. It's still peaceful. No one's doing everything.
But if you're
Everything's marching.
stopping
But as soon as
movement,
police officers,
if you're stopping movement, it's no longer peaceful. If you're
but that's the
stopping
thing.
someone from getting
But
to
this
work,
is the thing about BLM. It's not supposed to be something cute and something that keeps people comfortable. It's actually a revolution. It's really a movement
Uncomfy.
where people are trying to get you to understand. Because when people like Colin Kaepernick take a silent knee, it's disrespectful.
I had no issue with Kaepernick doing that at all. I had none at all.
I mean, maybe not you, but a lot of
other individuals.
He was blackballed from
a lot of people were
so
angry.
a lot of people had an issue with that. But these protests aren't supposed to be.
He was on his way out of the NFL anyway. He was on his way out. He had just been replaced on the string. The second that he had been replaced his first string. The second stringer was out.
There's no way he was on his. I just don't believe he was on his way out completely, and he had not been. Okay.
And
a player for long.
He would have been signed. If he didn't do that knee, he would have been on another team.
Tom Brady just played a game.
Well,
he just played a game today. He's old as shit. Like I can't.
No, I'm not saying he's on his way out from age. He was on his way out from numbers.
No
he
age
had
been
No, I'm saying same. No, I'm saying
yeah,
same.
let's not age discriminate. I'm an old man.
Yeah, I guess I am too.
But that's the thing about BLM is that it's not supposed to be something that makes people comfortable. People are actually going out there and they are knowing. If I met with the police, chances are it could turn very left. As we've seen, this is what we're protesting: police brutality. It's not just people being beat up by the police; it's people's lives being taken at an extremely high rate. So when you're bringing awareness and causing you're fighting for Black people, for equality, to be treated like everybody else. It's not going to be comfortable.
Well,
we're not going to sit together and sing Kumbaya with counter protesters, because truth is, we were peacefully on the sidewalk of our city, and we were still met with counter protesters calling us every name in the book, telling girls on the other side they were going to get raped if they left, and disgusting things.
Now that has happened.
It doesn't matter.
That has happened
you're met
both
with
ways.
Angry people who don't agree and don't understand where you're coming from, it's going to be ugly anyways.
That has happened.
Being met with tear gas and rubber bullets from protesters, for peaceful protesters, being met with tear gas and rubber bullets and things like that. That's one. It shouldn't. That's not even. I don't even believe that's how things should be handled. But a lot of BLM protesters already know, and is also why people are screaming to defund the police, who gets billions of dollars a year, which is another loaded phrase. I understand that, but defund the police literally means to reallocate funds to different things. So mental health, let's defund the police, give them some of the money that the police have gotten so much of, start giving it to mental health programs, and all across America, you would see a decline in crime, I'm sure. Give it to education, because our schools are out here is one of the worst education systems in California. So when we say defund the police, that's what we're talking about, because an over militarized police that just strikes fear and just has a bunch of guns in the backseat of their car. I mean, I'm not I'm for Second Amendment. Keep your Second Amendment. I'm not saying that's wrong, but an over-militarized police.
On that alone, just you being pro Second Amendment, we're already automatically friends. Well, right, I would not say defund the police. I would say end the war on drugs. Step one, right off the bat, end the war on drugs.
It's a communication issue that the problem.
Decriminalize everything. But I want to ask you a question. So. The Black Lives Matter started after Ferguson, right? That was the initial protest, and granted, it started on a faulty premise. The brown kid was a shit brick, but that's when it started. So it's been going on since Ferguson, which was in 2013. So it's been going on now for 7 years, and it hasn't obtained a positive result. Why not try it my way?
So your way is to
have a party.
Have a party.
Bring people in. Bring them in with kindness, love, and acceptance. And if they still hate you, they don't get to have any barbecue and beer.
I just feel like anybody who sees what's going on in America should be outraged just as much as Black people are. And the phrase Black Lives Matter, how triggering it is for people to be like, all lives matter, all lives matter. Obvious, that is an obvious thing that all lives matter. But when we turn a blind eye to the Black lives being lost due to police brutality, then that's when it gets tricky. Black Lives Matter catches your attention.
But it's not just
Black
Black
Lives.
Lives.
The phrase already catches your attention. And then if you were to do your research and you learn about what they're standing for, I don't understand why we have to sing Kumbaya for you to be like, okay, I want to be part of this. Like, it's really
You should
not
be angry.
going to work.
You should be
just as outraged. Whether a person
I'm
is
angry
Black,
about
white.
I'm angry about
injustice.
Duncan Lemp. Duncan Lemp
If
got
they're injustice killed by the
because
police, I feel like anybody should be
they
outraged.
thought that he might have had a gun that he shouldn't have. So they shot him in his bed while he was asleep next to his pregnant girlfriend.
Right.
They put rounds through a fucking window towards a pregnant woman because they thought maybe there might be a gun somewhere on the premises. At his parents' house, no less. But I'm still saying, you've done it your way for 7 years, and there's been no positive effect. As a matter of fact, there's only been negative effect. It's only separated the races further.
Nah, I think Trump's doing is with that. That has nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter.
It started happening under Obama.
Yeah, this was.
It started happening under Obama.
BLM's objective isn't to win over the racist hearts. Like, it's really not about.
So what are you
going to
do?
come
on the counter protesters when they were there? I had no interest in trying to win them over.
So what are you going to do? Are you going to kill them? Are you going to push them into the ocean?
They're gonna. I feel like racists will always be. How could we ever clean out all the racists?
Show them.
They just need to go back into hiding. That's all they need to do. They need to stop speaking out their mouth.
But what you can stop is getting racists into office.
You can
as judges, as congressmen, as senators.
What if you could make them not racist though? What if you could do what what's that guy Daryl Davis does?
What is
educate people?
Daryl Davis goes and makes
educate as much as you want.
goes and makes friends.
I feel like racist people are just not as educated.
Do you guys know who Daryl Davis is?
It sounds a little familiar.
Daryl Davis goes and makes friends with KKK members and pulls them
a
out
black
of the KKK.
man. Yes, I've seen him.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yes.
Now he's going about it the right way. He's making not racist people. He's winning hearts and minds. He's going about it the right way. He's not going out and stopping traffic while a guy's trying to go to work. And that guy, he's not going to be too happy with BLM when he gets fired or maybe gets demoted, any of those things. You're not winning him over. You're hurting an innocent person. He may have stepped into it positive, BLM, but he gets stopped in a traffic jam because BLM is on the roads and loses his job. He's not going to be happy anymore. But if he drove by and saw a fare that said, we're on till 6, and he's like, I get off at 5. I know where I'm eating fucking dinner. You see what I'm saying? Get some bees with honey.
It's the same policy as when we drone bomb people in foreign countries.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're just not going to make friends with them when you're causing death and destruction. It just doesn't win the war. It just causes more anxiety.
And I'm not saying you have to, but what if, let's say 8% of the population is prejudiced. Probably another 8% is like, I just don't care, you know. But what if you win 7% of that I don't care over and 4% of that prejudice over? Then you don't worry about, we can't get people into office anymore because, one, if they are prejudiced, they're not going to get a vote or they're going to keep their mouth shut about it. So they're going to run on a different message. Trump's just a populist president. He's just a populist telling people what, at a time of financial insecurity, telling them, hey, I'm going to make all that better. That's all he is. He didn't come out with a racist message. He came out with a populist message.
First time I ever heard of Trump.
I agree that sometimes I feel like Trump is just so
no one ever
ignorant.
called him racist before he ran. Matter of fact, everyone kind of liked him across all races.
He was a Democrat.
I think sometimes the things he said is so ignorant that he definitely does just sound and look like a puppet. But as a president, it is your duty.
He's a populist.
To know and have a moral compass about what you're going to say to your people. I'm also not going to sit here and say Obama was the greatest president ever. Absolutely not. Absolutely.
No, if you want to talk greatest president, say it with me. Calvin Coolidge.
Who's that?
And nobody knows who he is, but he's the greatest president ever. But anyways, so okay, I am with you on police violence. I would like to see police return to the Mayberry model where they.
I bet the counter protesters are on the same page as that.
Everybody wants to do away with police violence.
Anthony, no.
Do you know what police were originally like? What their jobs were intended
well, it depends
for?
where you're at. In the South, they were
slave patrol.
They were slave catchers. That's kind of a part of it, but you always had marshals and sheriffs, which were a sheriff was an elected law enforcement officer. That's long before slave patrols. And
but
then
we just have to think
the initial. So police are a mixed bag, but yes, that is a big part of it was the recapture of slave patrols.
They were slave patrol. They captured runaway slaves, and you have to think
and
about.
You're correct. Do you think the police nowadays see themselves as that?
No, but I do believe that there is white supremacists
everywhere
within the police academy.
There's black
I believe white
supremacists
supremacists become
everywhere.
police every year.
There's
day.
Hispanic supremacists everywhere. The Chinese has a whole nation that is supremacist. The Japanese, there's supremacists everywhere.
America's actually a tolerant country in comparison to others.
We're the damn most tolerant, except maybe for that guy to the north.
You go to Trinidad, and it's like, how dark are you? And then line up, and then you beat each other up at the cricket game. And I've seen it firsthand. It's like, oh, you're like what they call it, like the Indian color tone, and then the Wesley Snipes color tone, and then they just go at each other. I mean, why? It doesn't make any sense.
But I think we'd make a more beautiful place if we stop people who are racist. If we pull them out, not silence them, not push them to the borders to where they rise up and fight. If we make them quit being racist.
Personally, as a black woman, I don't think it's my job to go and give my racist a hug and educate him and hopefully convert him into a regular, normal, tolerant human being. Like, racism is taught. Racism is taught.
I agree with her. I agree. It's not her job.
It's not my job. It's not any other black person's in America's job to think of ways that we can convert racism. Like, it's not a thing. And what you're seeing is black people being fed up because it's years and years and years of oppression.
Decades, hundreds of years.
There's no doubt, no argument that black people have been oppressed in America because systemic racism and the things that we're talking about has been years and years built on, from slavery, from slave patrol to prison to school pipelines today, to the prison system today, to private prisons, to how it's woven into everything you can bring up in America.
What laws are oppressing you?
It's not laws, because if you were to look out, you could say every black person here is as free as you as me. They can say what they want. They can do what they want. It's how many more times likely is a black person to get pulled over? How many times more likely is a black person going to go to jail for a longer sentence as this when they committed the same crime as a white person?
Actually, there's a law that's distinct. I'll tell you about it right now.
Go ahead.
there's a difference between rock and crack cocaine and powder
Learned
cocaine.
about this recently.
Okay. Who put that law in?
It was I don't know. I don't know his name.
Oh.
Don't know.
Joe Biden.
1980s.
No way.
Joe Biden in the 94 crime bill.
Uncle Joe.
Joe Biden. And you know who he did it?
But his new policies are he's trying to get.
You know who he did it at the request of?
Tell us.
The Democratic Black Caucus.
And
They was
Also-
hoping that would clean up their streets.
I also don't like Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, so that's another thing. I
God bless you.
know what you're talking about. But really quick it's not about what's oppressive is okay, let me just a few things of how it's woven into everyday life. Black women are 4 times more likely to die during childbirth, not because of genetics or anything, but due to not being heard, not being listened to
Or
in
location.
the medical realm. That
And
is
a-
a fact.
and
4
a lot
times
of
more likely
locations.
to die than a white woman.
And
Black people are 3 times more likely to be pulled over
how? Okay, let's go with the
Yeah.
childbirth thing.
and be unarmed. Yet a white man is 3 times more likely to be armed when they're getting pulled over.
Oh, hey,
but-
I was
But
in
a
an
black person
uproar.
is 3 times more likely to encounter police brutality.
I was in an
When they-
uproar over Philandro Castile. I was in an uproar over that. That pissed me off. That was terrible. A concealed
Those are
carry
things-
weapon holder. He was a permitted person. He told the officer he's permitted. The officer said, "Let me see your permit." He said, "It's in my back right pocket. I'm going to pull it out for you now." He pulled it out. The officer spurred out and shot him. That was an illegal shooting if there ever was one. Now that officer, I honestly believe, well, I'm radical when it comes to how do you punish our law enforcement and our DAs for when they screw up. I think they should have double the punishment as a civilian.
Do you know how
Anyways.
many officers get convicted?
Hardly
Not
any.
many.
Believe me, I know.
1%.
Believe me, I know. But let's go to that medical one. Okay. If you break down the childbirth deaths, what can we do to solve that? Let's look at one thing, or what's some of the deficiencies that cause that?
You would have to okay. Medical standards for blood pressure, all that type of stuff. Those are all models of what they think your blood should be based on a white male most of the time.
Okay.
There's studies, things that they've learned back in the day, that's off of a black male.
So we need
Back
to,
in the day, people really believed that black people had a higher pain tolerance than anyone else,
And some people still believe that.
and still do believe that.
I think pain
and
tolerance is an individual thing more than likely, but
Right, but they
Anyways,
believed that black people.
so we could update training for that, correct? In the medical schools and
You could update training. You could make things mandatory. If a mother giving birth is expressing a concern, it should be mandatory that her concerns are met, checked out, double checked, triple checked.
Okay, I
It
agree.
shouldn't matter.
Not ignored in silence.
What are
and
they?
then die.
What are they dying from during childbirth? May I ask? Do we have?
Isn't it
Like
like-
specifics, I don't know specific like diseases or complications, but it's always complications with your child. It's always different
Okay.
complications. It could be too much blood loss. It could be blood clots.
Low
it could
blood
be
pressure.
Low blood pressure. It could be so many different things. But when black mothers aren't being heard and their lives are being lost, that's when you know that there's a problem. When you have to change the way your hair is for a job interview to be more likely to get that job, or your name not being a typical
The way you
name that you
speak.
hear, the way you speak. There's actually laws. There's so
Like
many articles on
saying
schools
someone's from
mandating
Ohio.
hair for black students in school. No dreads. You can't wear braids. You can't have your afro out, which a lot of times braids, locks those things are protective styles for Black people. It's their culture.
So there's
That's-
schools that
That's
mandate your hair.
oppressive. Those are things that
Mhm.
white students would never go through. White students would never go through. You cannot wear your natural hair out.
Oh, I went through all that, but I played football. You could not have long hair if it hung down past the
Right.
helmet.
Long hair is another thing.
the
You
coach would
can't.
come
That's
down on
just
you.
that's. You can't.
But we
School to
as
prison pipeline. School to prison
Well, I
pipeline
wanna-
is Black
I wanna-
students being more likely to be suspended than any other student. Therefore, they're going to be at home on the street getting into things.
I read a study about that. It was
I wish I could pull
in
it
New
up.
Jersey.
I wish my laptop wasn't dead.
In New Jersey, they made
I'll
it
pull it up.
mandatory that they couldn't suspend a Black student. They couldn't suspend Black students, and
you mean like they couldn't suspend them just because of the color
yes,
of their skin?
yes, and it caused a little bit of a problem in the schools. But this was tried out in 2004, I believe, or 5. No, it had to have been a little later than that. But anyways, I don't know. I don't have the study on hand, so I don't want to.
And those are government schools, I'm assuming. I mean, I want to be able to say, hey, we're free Americans. We can move where we want to, but that isn't exactly the easiest thing in the world to do for people.
Mhm.
But it is.
Especially for-
But it is true. We can move. We can uproot and go. That is not something that the government stops us from doing.
I've got a question. You know, this is something that bothers me is when I hear the reports from Chicago on a long weekend where what was it, Father's Day weekend, they scored triple-digit numbers of murders.
The black on black violence in Chicago is horrendous.
Wouldn't it serve Black Lives Matter to say, you know what, we're going to go there, we're not going to protest, we're going to stand on the corner and watch and make sure that no little girl gets murdered? Or how about in Atlanta when that 8, or how was she 8 or 4 or something? Black Lives Matter. This was a Black Lives Matter. They set up an illegal roadblock. The mother, a Black woman, didn't know about said roadblock, went around it at that Wendy's right by where that other guy got killed. So they just shot at the car and killed an 8-year-old little Black girl. Where is Black Lives Matter when those horrible incidents happen?
So this is my thing with Black on Black crime. We don't call it white on white crime, and Black
I
people
would.
aren't killing.
I
Black
would
people
in a
aren't-
heartbeat. I would in a damn heartbeat.
You
I
would. You would, but America doesn't address white on white crime. The only time black on
But
black
nowhere-
crime is brought in instances like this, and let me tell you,
Nowhere does
Black
it
people
happen
aren't
at
killing
those
other-
numbers.
Black
nowhere.
people aren't killing other Black people because of their skin color.
No,
They're doing it
might
because
be
they're-
gang violence
Gang
and whatever
violence,
else, but it's not Black people going out
Uh-oh.
and killing Black people because of their skin,
Oh, you're back. Oh,
which is a completely different topic.
But they're still dead. I mean, when you're dead, you're dead.
But it's not. But what we're fighting, what BLM is fighting, is racial injustices. That's what BLM is.
Well,
racial
okay.
injustices, and you won't catch a Black person killing another Black person because they are Black.
Where's the racial injustice you can target then? Okay, we can update.
Police brutalities,
Okay, police brutalities.
That's not racist.
prison to school pipeline, private prisons.
Well, the prison to school pipeline, I honestly don't think that exists. I think that is a circumstance of
if
lower
I could
economic
pull up-
value.
I could pull up all.
I got it pulled. I got it pulled.
I can pull up all 10 high schools in my area, and I can show you the demographic for students being suspended is Black and homeless students.
Okay, Black and homeless. So I believe it's an economic issue versus a Black issue.
Right, which is also systemic because
How do we solve that economic
what is
thing?
redlining? Have you heard of redlining?
Redlining hasn't happened in a long time.
What's
was
red?
made
Redlining
illegal.
is
What's
still-
redlining?
Redlining is still, but it's still happened, and it's still there's still effects
affecting
from it.
us. It's still affecting
It doesn't just go away. You redline.
Redlining
you move
was
these
when
Black cities. You move these Black people and you keep them in the ghettos. You build your suburbs around them. Those ghettos are still ghettos.
redlining
Right.
was when real estate agents and banks weren't allowed to sell or rent to African Americans past a certain mark. It is illegal now. There are laws on the books. They can't do that anymore. But there's an economic issue. But I want to.
But there's still
generations.
They're still lining for
Well,
they're still lining for certain schools and what counts as that county. So, for instance, my school's right here. The radius could be, we'll just throw a number, 50 miles. 50 miles around the school. These are the students that are supposed to go to this school. They change those lines accordingly, and suddenly you will catch more African American and Hispanic students at one school and then more white students at another school. For instance, I go to Johansen, predominantly Black and Hispanic. If you were to compare Johansen to a school named Grigori, where it's predominantly white, they have mental health programs there. Mm-hmm. They have counselors they can talk to. They have all these extra things for their students so that they can be more well-rounded, mentally healthy, stay more stable, helping. But if you go to Johansen, we don't have any of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's
another thing. But the effects from things like redlining don't just vanish. They don't just disappear, because we still see ghettos, we still have suburbs, we still have I don't know about in Utah, but in California, affordable housing is a crisis here. We have so many people homeless.
Well, that's a supply and demand. You want to get into that?
I have some statistics here about Michigan.
That's my specialty right there. California is the worst for overregulation. So, one, they don't allow them to build houses. And two, when they build them, there's such a high cost just to cut dirt in California that the only houses they'll build are $500,000 houses, because they've got to be able to absorb that regulatory cost before the shovel touches the ground into that loan. And that's happening across the nation. But I want to ask you, I don't know if you guys are Democrats, but Democrats seem to love regulation. They love to have their hands in your pockets and everywhere else. And all these areas that seem to have all these issues seem to be a Democrat super majorities. You got Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago, California, Southern Nevada. They're all Democrat super majorities, where they start jumping these regulations on. And a lot of those regulations say things like, you've got to go to 4 years of college to do hair, or you've got to get a certificate to do things that, honestly, they should just let people open a kiosk and try. Why do you have to get a certificate to do hair? That's ridiculous. You know, and that's
a professional job.
Why
it's
not
like
let them
anything
try?
else. A teacher has to be certified. A police officer has to be certified.
Well, a police officer carries a goddamn gun. He brings death to the table. A person doing your hair, you might walk out looking goofy for a couple months, but then no one else goes to that person and their job fails. They only fail cutting hair twice, and then they better figure that shit out. But why do they have to go get 2 years of certification to cut fucking hair or to change its goddamn color? Why do they have to go to 8 months of certification to paint goddamn fingernails? Why not let people try it? So what I'm saying is, these areas that are stifled are areas where they're economically unable to try stuff. They're economically unable, so they're doing it on the quiet. I'm sure you guys all know a lady that does hair out of her house that doesn't have that certification. And she's kept quiet. Don't say her name, because I want to protect her.
I know multiple people
but
who
what
can
if,
braid hair and do hair.
What if she could just do that, open and freely? She could prove herself. She could maybe sign on under someone who proved themselves 10 years ago, learn a trade under that individual, and then move forward while getting paid, but have
I'm
that.
Sure it's all about credibility as well.
Have that.
It's all about credibility.
Advantage. What about a guy opening up an auto body shop? What about a guy opening up a mechanic shop? Why does he have to jump through all these regulations where the inner city, where they're already living hand to mouth, doesn't have the money saved up to jump into that capital. We've got to ditch that. We've got to let
Right.
people try to economically move themselves forward. And that will fix those depressed areas, because those areas are depressed because there's not enough economic opportunity there. Everything's around economics.
I'm telling you. I know as a 45-year-old white male, there's no way
I have to jump through those
you
same
could.
hoops.
It's so easy to tell people to just pick themselves up by the bootstraps and just work harder. Why are you poor? Just get a job and go to school and work harder.
They
But it's
can't get a
literally
job
not that. It's
if
literally
there's no
not that.
jobs there, they can't get it because they're economically stifled. There's no jobs there. And then in Minnesota, when they burn down the Target that says, all right, we're pulling out, there's no more Targets in Minneapolis. They're done. So all those people that did have a job there, now what do? Walmart's pulling out. Now what do those people that worked at Walmart do? They're just furthering that economic strife. Now, I'm not going to say that Black Lives Matter burned those buildings down. Me, personally, I believe Antifa did. Those bastards are people that should be.
What is what I know what Antifa is, but like for it to be a terrorist group, I cannot say I've seen Antifa with my own eyeballs. Like, what is that? What is
Anti-fascist started in Germany in 1928.
Okay.
You can blame them for Hitler. So it started in Germany in 28. It's called a Black Bloc then. Then it kind of migrated over here in the 60s. They tried jumping on and getting on the bandwagon with the Black Panthers, but the Black Panthers were smarter than they were and run them the fuck out.
And they're also getting their money from overseas, other countries like
Marxist
Russia, China.
organization.
They want to fund the chaos in America. You got to understand, like, America will fund the protesters in Hong Kong, and in China will be angry at us. They'll fund the protesters in, like, Antifa. And that's where these money flows happen, are between governments. And it's working. They are causing a lot of chaos. They're getting behind the Black Lives Matters movement and infiltrating it. And when you hear someone say, I'm a trained Marxist, that money is not coming from an innocent location. That's money coming from other countries and hostile organizations.
And you guys need to scream at BLM too, because every dime that gets given to BLM goes to Act Blue and goes right to the Democrat Party. None of it goes to the black community. None of it.
You got a good message.
So what do you mean? Like through GoFundMe's, through
Yep, all of that. Anytime you go to the BLM and donate to them, it goes to Act Blue. You can track it. Goes to Act Blue, and Act Blue sends that money direct to the Democrat Party.
okay, well, I know that GoFundMe takes a portion of whatever money they get from whatever cause, and the GoFundMe, the company, can decide where they go with their money, but it's not BLM that never sees any of the money. You get what I'm saying? Like, they take profit from whatever. They take a cut, like, okay, you're using our site to raise money. We're going to take a cut of whatever you raise, and that's how they make their money.
From the BLM, like,
You're
organization.
talking about the actual website, BLM.
You can donate.
The actual.
Yeah, you can donate to them. It goes to Act Blue. And Act Blue is a Democrat fundraising organization. And then that money that should go into these economically distressed communities just goes to the Democrat Party.
A lot of unions do the same
I'm
thing.
I'm gonna have to fact check that one because I don't know about
Please do.
that.
Please
but,
do. It is out there on the internet.
What was I gonna say? Another thing.
I'm a heavily armed, peaceful human being. Very peaceful. I'm ex-law enforcement, all that stuff. I want to see peace reign. I want to see all these distressed communities. I want to see them grow and become vibrant and become their own little economic superpowers. That's what I want to see. And
which is fair.
I
It
think
should be that way. It should be
it
there
should
should
be.
be
Shouldn't it?
I
Yes.
completely
black and
agree.
brown people should have the same opportunities that any white man or woman has.
We're all just
right.
people. We're all human beings. I think every human being should have the same opportunity. Now, I will agree that past redlining is echoing into now because the redlining happened when we were more economically free in this nation. The redlining stopped, and then the economic freedom stopped at the same time. So now these areas that were trapped but still had economic freedom, which the black people moved from the South to Detroit because of the auto industry, because there were good paying jobs. They moved from Atlanta up to Baltimore because they could go work on the docks and good paying jobs. They were making good money, and that's what drew them in. So they got there and then kind of got stuck in by redlining, but they were still economically viable because those jobs still existed. But those jobs went away and they were no longer economically viable. Some of them bounced out quick, figured a way out of those areas and into a place that's more economically vibrant. We've got to bring economic availability to those areas.
We can also talk about. You want to talk about another thing when it comes to neighborhoods? Most wastelands, landfills, whatever you want to call them, they'll be found in black and brown communities.
I
which
completely
is hazardous to your health.
Was it
It depreciates the value of your home, so your house isn't going to be worth anything because who wants to live where it smells like shit all the time and there's toxins being released and people are getting sick. So that's another thing.
I think it was in Houston where there was a big landfill and it was a black city councilman that set that up.
There was a chemical spill in Compton last week.
He got paid to set that up. It was a big deal. But yeah, I agree. I agree.
We used to destroy chemical weapons right here in Tooele.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you want to talk about hazardous chemicals in an area.
Yeah.
And this is a predominantly white area. So, I mean.
But you're in Utah.
Yeah, we're in Utah.
We count.
But it's still.
But I'm saying, like,
they're gonna
it's a predominantly white state.
Well, what they're going to do is,
right.
I don't think they're pinpointing black communities. I think they're pinpointing real estate. What real estate
areas.
can we afford to set this up in?
Right. Which is going to be
and I agree with
found in black and brown communities because
the real estate is cheaper. Yes, I agree with you. That's why I'm saying you make these places economically vibrant, the real estate goes up with it. That's the cure.
And how do you do that, Jared? How do you make somewhere that is not economically viable?
Let people try it. Let people try it. Let people, if they can try to open up a shop to do whatever they want, aside from medical and stuff that I think you should be certified for. But I think for doing hair, let them try doing hair. Let them try. Maybe they'll say, you know what? I don't feel comfortable cutting hair, but for right now, I'll do hair styling. You know, I'll do cornrows and braids, or I'll just shave the back of the neck for, $5 a pop.
Can you imagine how cheap the education would be if it wasn't mandatory?
Or if it didn't spend all its time not teaching.
Yeah, and a lot of the problems.
I feel like those certifications just come from. You want credibility. You want someone who's going to say, "Hey, I have experience in this." You're not
Some
going to
people
want
might
to go to just anybody for your car. You don't want to go to just anybody for your hair. People care about that stuff. There was
So many negative
protests. There was protests.
And
so
I'm not
white people
saying
could get their hair cut.
I'm not saying that certification goes away.
People clearly give a fuck about their hair.
I'm not saying that certification goes away, but what if someone wants to spend half the price to get their hair done?
I mean,
because they're poor.
Have you ever gone to the university where they have one of the technical haircutting schools to get your hair cut?
I have.
Because it costs $5 or whatever.
All the time.
When I had hair, I used to do that all the time. I would go there and pay a lower price to have someone who didn't have that certification. So, yeah, that lady or gentleman, when they first open up, they might be cutting hair distinctly of guys who give less than a shit of how they look walking out of there. They're just tired of their wife saying you look shaggy. They may
There's also different hair textures. Not all hair cuts the
and
same.
they may cut their teeth on that alone, and then learn little tricks along the way. So maybe 5 years into it, they've learned a few more tricks. They've got
but you would rather go 5 years learning some tricks, or you go to school where they teach you different hair types, and you get it all right there. So
that's
when you
5 years
you know
where instead of them paying to learn that, where they're paying what? Probably 20 grand.
I haven't even looked into stuff like that about how much it costs or
where they're making
what you're saying. I understand. I mean, hey, I could easily agree and be like, I wish it would cost less too. I wish business permits didn't cost that much. I wish people could start doing what they want to do. It would be easier to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But I mean, what I'm here to talk about is to try to give you an insight on a life that you could not understand as a white man. There's no way you could get, unless I'm trying to tell you, by you telling me you don't really think school to prison pipeline is real, like that's all coming out of privilege. That's a privilege that you could think that.
I grew up dirt poor. First time I was put in handcuffs was when I was 13.
It's not about
put in handcuffs and thrown in the back of a car. So it's an economic thing. I don't think it's a color thing. It's an economic thing.
But it's not, though. Like, you're privileged. I don't mean that you didn't struggle as a child, or
do you think
you didn't have a hard childhood, or you didn't come from a poor family. You this. That's not what it means. Privilege means if it was you or a black man.
Now, hold on. Now,
on paper, you are probably more likely to get that job than Daquan is, because your name is Jared.
Now, if I'm...
That's not true. If you're black, you have a better opportunity of getting jobs in the government than you do if you're
and
white.
Going to college.
A government job? It's not even
going to college. Us being already in a poor demographic, us being in a poor area, it's not likely for us to go to college. It's really hard for us in college.
Hey, same here. Now, I want to ask you this. So, I grew up in an all-white town. The police are going to use violence. There's no black guys to use it on, so who do they use it on? It's an economic thing. The violence goes to... The violence, generally, if you boil it down, it goes to... If you lay out all of the police shootings, you'll see there's more of an economic value to that. It lays on the feet of economics.
Okay, but let's talk about all of America. Who is most likely to fall at the bottom of that ladder? If we're talking economically.
In economically
black
depressed,
and brown people.
If in
black
economically,
and brown people, yes, there are poor white people. Absolutely, there is poor white people.
In economically depressed areas, there's commonly more crime. Police are sent to where there's more crime, which is why there's more contact.
Right. And black people are usually in those
and they're
areas,
stuck in economic
due to history that is now still being seen.
So how do we fix that? How do we fix that? My idea to fix that is give them the chance. I don't want to say pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I want to say drugs are now legal, so we've taken the violence out of that that recreational option. And then I want to say, if you've got an idea to try it, try it. If whatever your idea is, try it. Just shoot for the moon, shoot for the stars, and you'll probably fail. Most entrepreneurs fail over and over, but try it. We as the people, the government, are not going to put any barriers in your way. I want to pull all the barriers that the government puts in your way and let the only barrier be you and the customer. You and the customer figure it out, work it out, whatever, but you try it. And I'll go further. I'll say, you know what? You're trying something. we're not going to tax you for 5 years. We're not going to, well, I want to say we're not going to tax you ever again. But I will say for that point, we're not going to tax you for 5 years. You try it. Try it. Matter of fact, you try it, and we've still got these grant things open. Try for a grant to advance it. You know, if you want to get a grant to get a piece of equipment that maybe you can't get off the start, or to get that first 3 months of structure rent or whatever, try it. I want to give them the opportunities to fight their way up and make these areas vibrant. And they've got to quit voting in politicians that are going to want to legislate more regulations that is only going to hurt your area. These regulations that they write in, those are brought in on the heels of people who've already established themselves, who don't want competition.
Okay, I believe, okay.
Because I don't know, other than that, what's the answer? Going around and maybe rounding up racists and then evaluating them? Do we shoot them in the head? Do we only lob a leg off to hold them back? What's the other option?
Like I said, okay, so that's we can't do, that's something really radical. There's no way to fix racists like that. We can't just pick them out and just,
then do we,
you know
get
what I'm
them
saying? But if we want to do if you're talking about regulation, let's have more regulation up top.
What do you mean regulation up
like
top?
What does that mean? Yes, please define that.
Okay, so for working class people, you're talking about, why is there so much regulation to start your own business?
There's regulation up and down the border. Out at where I work.
But also without regulation, the information that they have, for instance, Tinder or Facebook, or all the data that they collect, they could do whatever they want with that stuff.
They're doing that now.
If you've ever had a Tinder, they know.
They're not regulating that now. They're doing that now. Now, I don't have a Tinder. I'm, again, I'm an old man, but I don't do the dating internet thing because, I'm not retarded. Girls can do that. They've got a better market value, but guys just should stay.
That whole sentence right there, it's so hard. You just you said the R word, which is disrespectful to anybody, and then you said girls can do it. I'm not retarded, but girls can do it. It's slap in the face. Girls aren't retarded. We're right here with you.
Well, I'm not saying girls. I'm saying guys.
Some people
guys that do that.
Like it, some people it's easy hookup. People like it. That's no shame in your game.
That's a 10% top. That's a 10% top guy model. Anyone under that 10%, all they're doing is making themselves depressed. That's the studies that are saying.
It's preference.
It's actually
preference
20%,
on everyone.
Jared.
Okay, but
20% of the males get 80% of the sex in the planet.
10% of the males on Tinder get 90% of the intention.
I'm telling you, it's 20. I think it was 20.
We
got to broaden the spectrum.
Okay.
Anyways, but
let's reel it back in.
But anyways, and sorry I said the R word. If I wasn't saying women are retarded.
Just in general, like, I don't know. I don't say that word. I try not to. It's just
that
word's
now.
It's like a generational thing.
Okay, that's probably a generational thing. So I would say that is
like it's disrespectful.
That is extra chromosomally challenged.
Not any better.
Let's
go. Yeah.
Okay, I've had statistics on this paper for.
All right, bring it up. Let's hear.
Go ahead. Let's hear.
All right, we got Detroit here. We got the blackest city in America. Okay, we also got Livonia, the whitest city in America. Okay, what we got? Sorry, let me pull up my. Okay, the whitest city in America, or in Michigan, in America, Livonia, population 994,000, 5.4% of poverty rate. Okay, in Detroit, Michigan, they have a 600,000. Poverty rate is 37.9. The household median is 31,000, and the property value is 51,000. And then Livonia is 75,000 for the income, and then 1,700 for the I can't fucking speak about senators.
Are those
you-
all
Property
Democrat
values.
cities?
They are, but would you do me a favor and look up Detroit circa 1961?
1961.
What was its values then compared to anywhere else? Because Detroit failed for a reason. Failed for a reason that International Harvester is, you don't see any internationals anywhere. Failed for the reason that Ford is now made in Kentucky and Canada, and GM is now made in Tennessee and Mexico. That's why Detroit failed. The auto industry got ran out. They couldn't afford to work there anymore. They couldn't afford to build there anymore.
Move to Salt Lake. You'll find a job tomorrow. This is like
Yeah, heck, yeah, move on out here. I mean, it's probably not near as cool because it is.
What were
Lake.
the statistics on Black people being approved for home loans?
Oh, now that is a fact. That is a fact.
2019.
There is
What are those statistics? I don't have the numbers
there is a
on
depression
the top
on
of my head,
But could that be? And now you can't just say approved for home loan because you also got to take into account. And I don't want to get rough on this, but credit score. Do they have money for down payment? Because you got to do equal values across. You can't just say color versus color because we've already established that the black people are stuck in economically depressed areas where they don't have these resources to build up.
That's that. You said it.
You're almost
You said it. You
I've been
said
saying
it.
that
Like,
the whole time. Let's free their economy.
You said that. You said that, but that's what I'm saying. It's not just a what can we pass?
No,
What can we do? It's not something that could just be fixed because I'm telling you
what
these
can we
issues are
stop
woven
doing?
into the American system to where black people are supposed to stay oppressed.
no, we
That's what
don't
it was
want. I
meant
don't
for.
want
They're
anybody
supposed to stay
oppressed.
there.
I say, what can we stop doing to free them? I don't care if we just stop regulation in those areas. Keep regulation everywhere else. Let's allow these guys. Let's give them a cheat. Let's give these depressed areas a cheat and stop the regulation there. Let them try.
I mean, I'm all for reparations.
Well, how does that work? How does that come from?
Give black people the reparations.
How does that work? Where does it come from?
Give
Who
them their
gets
land,
it?
give
How
them
do you
their
grade it?
money, let them build up, be able to buy a home.
Where does that work? How does that come from? Thomas Sowell's done a lot of work on reparations and how that'd pan out. But how does that work? Where does it come from? Would that cure racism?
No, it would not cure racism.
Would it possibly make it worse?
a jealousy factor would definitely.
And then would it also make there's a pretty severe study on people on welfare, how they feel about stuff, so it kind of hurts them as well.
How does the Native
mentally.
American population
40%,
do?
isn't it 40% of people who are on welfare are white?
Well,
I'm pretty sure it's like not actually, but I don't like the idea that it's mostly black and brown people on welfare.
did I say that? Was that
No. I'm speaking out loud. And
okay?
I'm telling
Speak
you
out loud. Yes, I
that's
agree.
That's an idea that people believe that it's mostly black and brown people on welfare.
I don't
That it's mostly black
believe
and brown
that.
people that abuse welfare, but
There's more people on white people on welfare than there's black people. Now, is
Absolutely.
the percentage of the population? I
The
don't know, but-
percentages don't matter because I don't care about. I say we go into these depressed economic areas, and we say no regulation here. You can try whatever you want. You're gonna fail. Probably 70% of you're gonna fail the first try.
all the big companies
Probably-
would move there.
Probably 50% are gonna fail, and the big companies can move there as long as
There's the jobs.
they've got to deal with putting those guys in those economic depressed areas in charge of what they move there. I don't care. Move there and grab the first guy you see and say, you're now the plant supervisor. You're now the store supervisor. You're now our, whatever. I don't care. As long as all they can deal with, if they want that, if Walmart wants to move there and get that regulation cut, It has to be 100% in that store.
See, there you go, passing regulation, Jared.
See, but that's another thing.
They're
Big,
Fascist. He's a fascist.
Good, man.
but and then okay, I know. I want to know how you feel about this as well.
Okay.
Looting on these big companies. You brought up Target and who you think burnt it down.
I'm an anarchist. I believe private property reigns supreme. Oh, we lost you, Jozette. I believe private property. If you don't respect private property on the big evil store, how are you going to respect it on stolen? How was it stolen? There was an agreement made.
That agreement was fake.
It is
But
stolen.
how
All
are-
America is stolen, was taken from the Native Americans. There's no way you can start regulating
That
what
happened
what
how
we
long
should and
ago?
shouldn't respect.
Can you punish me for a crime done by an ancestor 300? Can you punish me
For the crime of your father.
for the crime of my father?
That
we're talking
you at the time of your father, but when those things are still happening, Native Americans are still being ran out, Native American reservations are still being taken, then it's something that we still have to address. Native Americans still don't have land, not nearly as much land that they had when they started here. So it's still something that you can address. It's not something you just forget.
I
it
can
was rightfully their land.
I'm going to say something horrible right now.
Took.
We didn't came and took. We came and fought a fucking war for.
We conquered it. You conquered
It conquered, and it's
Okay.
horrible, but that's what it
you
is.
You came in and you conquered and you took it. You
Yes.
started a war where there wasn't a war. You just wanted the land. We wanted the land. We wanted the land. We want this land. We're going to go to war for it.
Just like the Nubians did to southern Egypt circa 6,000 years ago. Do we want to go there now and say anyone with skin darker than this needs to be thrown out or punished for that? Because that's now. We can't punish people now for then because that's illogical and that's borderline psychotic.
I don't really feel like Target got punished when one of their their
employees are getting
$1
punished.
company, and I don't feel like Target really.
The lady that ran the register,
Target could rebuild there if they really wanted to. Target could rebuild. They would have the money.
But there's
the
no
corporation
protection.
is so big.
There's no protection for them there. So they're not going to rebuild because there's no protection. Because the community destroyed that Target. They're not going to rebuild there. Target's not hurt. Target's going to make its money regardless. But the lady that ran that cash register is hurt. The guy who stocked the shelves at night is hurt. Those are the guys that I give a fuck about.
They lost their job. That's what we're talking
because
about.
Now what are they doing now? Now they're wondering how they're going to feed their kids, or are they going to be living on the fucking street? That's what's hurt.
Or, I mean...
So then what? We give them reparations. Where does that come from? Where do we introduce that gun?
We also have unemployment until they get back on their feet. So many Americans are receiving. That's why things like that are
but
there.
But that job's gone. That's what... At the minimum,
the job is gone, but I'm sure there's another job,
50 positions that are gone in that community. 50 positions at the minimum.
Right.
Probably more like 100 that are gone on a vacant lot that's still owned by someone that someone else has to buy and then cut through the red tape to open something up. And so who's going to go there and chance
Why do we have things like unemployment, disability, welfare, food stamps, things like that if people can't... If something that was out of their control happens to their job and they no longer work,
they can go
they're
on.
They're not going to just be homeless the next day. Like they have a safety
net. They can go on that because
Target,
I'm sure on welfare. I'm sure on welfare they can prove themselves and get a supervisory position in 3 years. I'm sure that they can prove themselves and maybe even get a corporate position that moves them out of that community in 10 years.
Or what about Target? Why can't you be like, hey, wow, we can't believe this happened. We're going to take care of our employees because you work for us.
Because the community...
And we're going to give you some money until we either rebuild, we can relocate you, we can help you find another...
Why would Target just give money out? The Target's going to say...
Those are your employees that
Target's
you care so much about.
Target's going to say, you're not my child, and your community burned down our store and cost us, what, $5 million, $50 million? They cost us that much.
They'll want to punish that community.
Why do we have...
That's why Target, not only the store that burned down left, all the stores in that city left.
But listen to this, Jared. If you give everyone welfare at that point when all these stores are burnt down, okay, fine. You print some paper and you give it to them. That paper represents nothing if there's not products and labor worth purchasing.
It's another good point.
What? You can't do nothing with paper? That paper is a representation of wealth. It's a measurement. It's a tool. It's like a measuring tape that measures a placard of wood. It's worth nothing if there's no labor or services.
It's all
to
about
purchase.
the product. That's another thing. Look up Weimar Republic burning money. They would burn money in their stoves because it was cheaper than wood. They inflated it that much.
Okay. So
Trump added 6.7 million jobs in America, so I think we have enough jobs to go around.
not Trump.
Okay.
No, I
we've
get
added
what they're
6.7
saying, but when
million
I'm saying,
jobs on how many
I
people?
get it when people look
How many
at
people
it.
are in the United States? What's the
many-
population?
400 million.
Let's look at the working class.
I
Probably
understand
roughly
when
around
people look-
200
I
million.
understand when people look at the looting and they just are disgusted, or you know the rioting of whatever it turns into. But that's what I'm saying is this is all a perfect storm. This is all a perfect storm. Everybody's home. Everybody sees what's going on. It's still going on. Everybody has time. You're going to see BLM stronger than the past years. You're going to keep seeing people out more in the streets. They have not stopped protesting, even though news channels aren't covering anymore.
Yeah, because it hurt the Democrat Party. It hurt the
I mean,
Democrat
all they were
Party.
showing was all they were. You're right, because all they were showing was rioting and looting. Did they show any peaceful protests? I myself held about 4 peaceful protests out here. I'm still part of the movement, doing what I got to do. But all they're going to show is rioting, looting, which does not happen every single protest. But what I will tell you is that it's a movement, not a moment, and it's going to keep continuing until you're gonna see. Once you
What's
see
the
the change, you're
target,
gonna see
though?
that this whole movement is a revolution for Black and brown people.
What's the
Revolutions are
target,
blood.
though?
The America that
What do you want to see? You've got this movement, but what things would have to happen for the BLM to be appeased?
you're gonna have to see police defunded across America. You're gonna have to see those funds reallocated to things so that crimes and whatever people want to hoo and
So
holler and
police
say that the
defunded,
police are here for.
Would
until
police defunded cure the people killed in Chicago? I think it was what?
No, but it's going to
Over-
help the future people in Chicago probably not
Oh,
be killed.
Over
If we start investing into our communities a little bit more and stop over militarizing our police,
Oh, hey, I'm with
I
you
feel
on
like we're
that.
going to see a lot of change,
That's
because
the war on drugs.
police come after the crime has already been committed. So I don't know, but
That's the
when
war
you
on
see-
drugs. It's the war on drugs that brings 90% of the police violence.
and let's talk about unregistered guns out in the streets.
Oh, I hope
I
there
know
are
my
plenty
city.
of them.
My city
Yeah,
is
I want more unregistered.
my
unregistered
city is
guns.
number one. My city is number one in California for most youth deaths by guns in California. So why don't we start buying them back? You don't get no time. You turn
No.
them in. We buy them back.
What are these youth deaths caused from?
These are
Guns.
drug gangs. And
Are they
stuff.
drug?
Guns.
Are they drug gangs though,
Guns.
or is it gang violence, or is it just random shootings?
Duels?
I'm most positive it's going to have to do with gang
And what's the
what
gangs?
other area?
What's the
and
gang's
what-
economic model?
If you're going to try to say that gangs solely fight about drugs, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I'm not
Okay, so
disagreeing
let me
with
ask
you
you a
on the war on
question.
drugs. I'm not disagreeing.
When was
with
the
you on
last
drugs.
time? When was the last time? This was asked when the gubernatorial candidate was on the other day. When was the last time the head of Jack Daniels shot the head of Jim Beam?
What?
The head of
Right.
Jack Daniels shot the head of Jim Beam. They're in the same county in Kentucky. They're relatively close.
Uh-huh.
You know why they wouldn't shoot each other?
Why?
Because they can call the police if something gets stolen. If someone breaks into the Jack Daniels plant and steals tools or a car, whatever, they can call the police. But when an illicit substance is your model and you get stolen from, you can't call the police. You can't get redress in the courts. So you have to send that message on the street. You have to get your redress on the street, and you have to do it fast and violent, because when it's done fast and violent, it sends a message, hey, don't go, stealing from him. Now, I have personal impact in my life from this very model.
And what about government placing those drugs and those guns?
Hey, I completely agree.
The black and brown communities
I completely
are
agree.
already underserved.
Have you ever looked at Portugal's model on what they've done with their war on drugs?
Mm-mm.
Ladies, take a look at that tonight. Look at what Portugal did. It's amazing.
All I'm saying is,
and I think you would approve.
The defunding of police, I feel like when
they took the money from police and they gave it over to doctors, and they built methadone clinics, and they built safe use clinics, and they have a nurse in every clinic. Their overdoses, zero, not one overdose.
Portugal took the money from their police.
Took the money from their police that went to drugs, went to drug interdiction. They took that money out, and that money went to medical. Their police are still there to solve crimes. They're still there to recover stuff. We need to look at that. So you guys just say defund the police. That's a blanket statement. You need to say.
But that's the same thing. They reallocated funds. Mm-hmm. They reallocated funds. That's exactly what defund the police means. There's no way America would ever.
How come that's never
there's no
said,
way.
Though? How come that's never said? Let's take just this much, the drug war money, away from the police. You say defund the police. That's a blanket statement that could mean anything, right? That could say I pee at the toilet. It might go in it. It might go around it.
It is a blanket.
You need to say.
I said it is a loaded. I said that in the beginning. It is a loaded statement.
You need to say we take the drug war money away from the police.
The Democrats won't let them say that, though.
You take the drug.
But it's not specific. It's not take it from drugs. Take it from wherever you got to take it.
No, you take it from the drug war. That's where it needs to come from.
Because I'm not worried about. Because what I feel, if we're reallocating and we take it from here, we take it from where Jared wants to take it from, and we do these, and you said the drug overdose is zero. Great. But I also want to see it in mental health programs so that people can get help.
You know what a lot of addiction comes from?
Because locking them up in addiction, so you get charged, you go to jail for drugs, mm-hmm. You're addicted, you get released, you're 13 times more likely to go back into the prison system.
You decriminalize the drugs, so there's no longer jail involved with that.
Yeah. Takes the equation.
That's what I'm saying.
And they don't even do drugs on the street anymore. So you take the money from the war on drugs and you put it into clinics. You open up clinics wherever there's. You say, okay, we've got, 200 known users in this general area. Bam, pop a clinic in, right? We'll even assign a driver in a car to go pick people up. The people, not only do they not do drugs on the street, they do drugs in that clinic. The dealers.
They're starting that in San Francisco.
The dealers, well, they're almost doing that in San Francisco. The dealers,
San Francisco just defunded their police.
The dealers still have their economic model where they're still selling drugs. It's just now, if the dealer gets ripped off, does he send his goons out on the street to start shooting shit up? No, he calls the fucking police. And the police come over and say, oh, we're going to brush for fingerprints. We're going to find out who did this because he burglarized your private property. And the police enforce that private property, right? And then the people who buy the drugs, the dealers hang out on the street and they, whatever. The people come to them. And they no longer fight with each other. They say, all right, I'll hang out on this corner.
Well, you can get them in the mail.
Of the very
building. You just want a regulated. You just want gangsters on the corner still doing the drugs they want to do, but it's over here.
I want to remove violence from the equation.
Right. But also you have to realize for a lot of black and brown people, when they're on the street in gangs, it's due to being in this cycle going to prison and then not being able to get jobs, what else are you going to do to survive?
Most
You're
of
going to
that
start selling
cycles.
drugs. You're
Most
going
of
to
that
start selling
cycles.
drugs to get the food on the table. You're going to start stealing from Walmart to get the groceries and the milk for your baby because
Most of that
damn, I
cycle
can't get
is
hired
initiated
anywhere.
from their father going to jail. But go on.
But I'm saying it's a cycle.
It's
a cycle, and it's something that people get caught in.
What if we eliminate the drugs sending people to jail from that cycle? What if drug use no longer
Then we would
sent
have
people to jail?
if we did that, then we would have to start sentencing black and brown people the same way we sentence white people. We would have to start.
I agree. How about if when someone is
We would have to
How about if when someone went to court, they stood behind a screen, their name wasn't announced, we would give them a random number, and they would go on trial behind a screen. You didn't hear their voice, you didn't hear their name, and you didn't see them.
Or how about you have a set? If you get caught with an ounce of coke, this is the time you do. Period. Point blank. Period. It doesn't matter who's your name. Why do I got to stand behind a screen?
How about
why
if you get caught?
The judge shouldn't even be able to judge you by the skin of your color.
How about
why?
How about if you get?
Yeah, I shouldn't even think.
How about if you get caught with an ounce of coke? They make sure you're of the appropriate age to have that coke. Period. And if you're not, they flush that coke down the toilet. They call your folks and say, "Hey, your kid had coke. Come pick him up."
That could work too.
That's what I want to do.
It would solve so many
that
problems.
would work too.
We're agreeing here. We're agreeing.
You're not hearing here. I want to not just decriminalize drugs. I want to legalize them. And I don't use any drugs except for beer and nicotine. I want to legalize them all. I want to legalize them all. And then I want to open up clinics where there's a doctor to make sure you're not getting administered a hot shot or a dirty shot. And I want to make it so that the drug dealers, if they get stolen from, they get to deal with it in court. The police go, they fingerprint, they find the guy who did it, they write him a ticket, they all have to show up to small claims court. You stole $2,000 of drugs from him, you owe him $2,000, and also you owe us $500 for our troubles. And then
wouldn't you make the drug dealer into like a business, pretty much?
Exactly.
Right, but
just like they've done with marijuana all over.
Like, yeah.
But who's to say that even with all these clinics and you legalize all these drugs that it still won't end up on the streets? Just the same way that people claim we have so many gun
regulations. It's going to be on the streets, but the guys will want to use it in the clinic because the clinic will be comfortable. It'll have Tom and Jerry on a television. There'll be a couch and a nurse that will shoot the needle in your arm safely for you. It'll be a clean needle. It'll be safe. That's where there will still be drugs used in a house, just like alcohol isn't only drank at bars.
But then there's still addiction in the world. And then you go home and you're still dealing with that addiction.
There's always going to be addiction, but we will help them with dignity and not having a felony.
It's nonviolent.
That's where it is.
Or
that means they can
invest in mental health programs because
we can. And
addiction is also a
what if in the same
and also not wish on anyone.
Also, if they don't have a job and they can't get a job because of that felony, that hurts their mental health. So in the same clinic, we'll have another room where we'll have narco classes and a mental health specialist if they want to go in and chat. If they want to go on a program of using methadone to get off of heroin, if they want to do that, it'll be in the exact same building. It'll be staring them in the face every day. And on the other side, we'll have another room that's job services. Hopefully, it'll need to be a much smaller room, but it'll be the same thing. Oh, you want us to help you find a job, gain some of that dignity to help you come off this stuff? Come on in. We've got computers. We've got a guy that's really good at resumes. We've got the connections. Hey, look, this place down the street, I know right now is looking for someone. You don't even need to get on the computer. Here's my card. You walk down, you show them my card, you've got a job.
And that's so much cheaper than the war on drugs, just what you're explaining.
And we're not burying people.
These police forces are expensive. The bombs, the guns, the boats, the planes.
Exactly.
I know they spend a lot of money on me. Spend a lot of money sending me to make me more proficient. And I was on the killer side of police. They spent a lot of money making me that. And this is what I came away with. An anarchist that wants peace and love everywhere. Well armed, peace and love everywhere.
So if we have peace and love everywhere,
Sounds good.
Utopia.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Sounds
I mean,
like it
you know
sounds,
what
it
you will.
sounds good.
It sounds
but
nice. I wish.
It
I
sounds
You know what
good.
utopia-
It sounds like
I want
you,
that. I want
You know
that.
what utopia
I don't know. It
translates
sounds
into?
like you're up for defunding the police too, because they get billions of dollars. I think we have militarized police. I think our
But see, I'm
military
more pinpointed.
also gets way too much money. I think that Black people are dying at a higher rate than any other people in America, and I feel like there is so much oppression, years of oppression, that can't just be undone with a click of a snap of a finger. And I think that until we get politicians because that's how our government works, we have to have politicians that make the laws and review them and pass them, that really start caring about the people.
Have you guys,
Then
now I'm not a voter, but have you guys looked at the Libertarian Party at all?
No.
Take a look at them.
It's exactly what you're talking about. And it's been that for years and years.
and I also
years.
think that if
Look up
Trump
Ron
is-
Paul 1980, was it 1980 presidential run on Donahue?
Said Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
if Trump gets another 4 years, you're gonna see even bigger uproar in BLM. I feel like.
That just sounds like you're trying to
if
hold.
Biden gets 4 years,
That
I
just
think it's
sounds,
going to-
honestly, that just sounds like you're trying to hold people hostage for your political outcome, which by definition.
It's not even
No.
about political things anymore.
No,
it's
it's
about the
not.
hate he's spreading. It's not even about political anymore. He's spreading
than
so
that.
much hate. It's not even
You're gonna see the
But
people
by
on the
saying
streets for the
it-
kids in cages. You're gonna see the people on the street for DACA recipients. You're gonna see people on the street for Black and brown people, because people like Trump are also denying, ignoring.
do
that
one of you have a
certain things
computer in
exist
front of
in this
you?
country?
Do one of you have?
I got my phone right here.
Can you look something up while you're chatting with us?
No problem.
Look up BLOD space MAI.
NAI. MAR or NAI?
MAI. Mike Alpha India.
I want to get my laptop too, honestly.
What's
So,
that?
repeat it one more time.
You're looking up Blood May. MAI.
Blood May. Am I looking at the description or just like
You can do Wikipedia.
microbacterium?
It's a historical event.
Okay.
You want to fill us in while they're searching?
Blood May was the communist uprising in Weimar, Germany, that led to a certain individual with a funky mustache getting elected that wreaked havoc on the earth. And he would not have gotten elected without the riots.
So communist infiltrators caused riots and angered the population to the point where they
The
elected
brown
an extremist.
shirts, the brown shirts weren't invented to fight them.
They were the saviors of Germany at that moment, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I'm really slow. I can't find anything.
So are you making a comparison for like the Marxist movements today?
I think we need to figure out a different model. We need to.
But this is the thing. The same thing that you're saying.
What do you?
There's so many people in the
I'm
BLM.
starving.
So
What are you
of
eating?
course, in anything, there's gonna be people part of BLM that are more radical than others,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah. And there's going to be people on the right wing or the whatever response that are going to be more radical than others.
Right. But
And I don't want any of those guys to join the party.
what I'm saying is that the more radical BLM, what would you call it? Protesters, supporters, they want to see America dismantled and rebuilt in a completely different way that people haven't seen before as well. They want the same thing.
In
When we
what
say
way?
defund the
What way
police,
that people haven't seen?
so like
before?
I'm saying, when you say defund the police, we want to see what, like, okay, we're still gonna have a police force, but maybe you have more social workers or people on mental health experts that go out with you. Why can't social workers and people who are experts at mental health, why can't they carry a gun and then respond to certain calls?
And what
right?
happens when they shoot someone?
Another riot.
It's not okay, but this is what I'm saying. I feel like
Will
if you
they
have
have
someone who's
will they have
trained,
immunity
you
because
can train anybody to use a gun. You can train anybody to use a gun.
I know.
But
I know.
but
Believe
when
me,
police
I know
officers
you can
shoot a
train
man that are
people.
coming out,
I
but
used
when
to
police
train
officers shoot a
people to
man in
use
his
guns.
back, when a police officer shoots a man in his back because he came out butt naked, running crazy, they don't know what's going on with him. They're just scared.
You're
When
talking
they shoot
about
him, they
that
don't know
thing
what's happening.
up in upstate New York where the guys. I watched the whole video. That's a little different animal.
So when that stuff
But
like
anyways,
that happens,
so what
if you had a
happens?
mental,
What happens when that
if you-
mental health expert gets into a situation where he or she has to employ that weapon as well?
They have
because their life is in danger, in actual danger, then okay. But what people are angry about,
non-lethal weapons.
There's no reason someone should be
There's
shot
no
7
such as
times.
non-lethal
What happened to your
weapons.
guys' tasers?
It's less
What happened to a
lethal
taser?
weapons.
Anthony, somebody's calling you.
Like, it's not about. I highly doubt if you reported to a call who is somebody who is mentally ill, a mental health expert, I doubt that they would look at this person like, oh my God, they're just crazy. Like, this is their field. This is what they
So
study.
when
But
that-
now
When
they're
that
just trained with
mentally
a gun.
ill person like that, I just watched a video from Alabama that happened last week. It was a white woman came out with a knife and actually cut the officer. That was a mentally ill woman. What happens when that?
Did she die?
It's still.
Did they shoot her?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
still.
They shot her dead.
Yes, it's still. It was a.
I seen that video.
It was a female officer. She came out, opened the door, and immediately slashed the lady in the arm with the knife. Slashed the officer in the arm with the knife. So what happens if that's a mental health expert? The same thing happens. Let's say that lady that came out as black. It's still gonna be. It's still gonna feel like the same outcome to you.
It's not that.
I don't think because you guys think that we change the narrative on every story, I believe. But they do have non-lethal weapons in the result. Like maybe we can tranquilize a person.
There's no
get their
such
weight
thing as non-lethal. As a person who is trained in them, there's less lethal. That's the correct phrase. Less.
There's
lethal.
no non-lethal.
No non-lethal.
Okay.
We ain't got no ties. We ain't got no stuff like that. We can't just shoot a gun, get some new gun. Can you hear me? Get some new guns. I don't know. A gun that wraps a person in some net. I don't know.
Right.
And if that
ties
guy
him up.
and
Maybe
if that
that's-
guy suffocates in there, automatically they've got to call it less lethal the next day.
In a net? In a net
in a
with
net,
holes?
an open
Yeah.
net, holes.
Yeah, what if that guy suffocates in there
suffocate?
because he's overweight and just him being restricted like that, it suffocates him. It'd be called manual compression death, but it's the same. Just like tasers, when they first brought those out, they called them non-lethal until they shot the first guy that had a weakened heart because of drugs, killed him dead.
Ow, bitch.
Is that your cat?
Yeah, she scratched me.
So that's why they're called.
I feel like we're advanced enough to find. I feel like we're advanced enough to find a way to make a non-lethal weapon. Like I don't understand why we haven't created one in the
I
first
feel like
place.
BLM isn't just because they're black and we're causing a fit. I feel like there's real stats behind it. Like real,
But
like things you cannot deny. of
what's
things that are actually
BLM's
going
cure?
on.
What's
Was that?
What's BLM's
Cure?
cure for the stats? See, I've got a cure. I've
This,
got an
defund
idea.
The police. Defund
I
the
just we had to
police.
fix.
But
More
would defund the
training.
police
Way more
fix?
hours of training.
Would defund the police fix the black on black violence? Would defund the police fix the crime.
If the black on black violence is only happening because it's in low communities, in low poverty communities.
See, that's where I brought an answer to the table.
Yeah, the answer to that, which I see what you're talking about. It's a good statement. I see what you're talking about. Help the communities. Defund the police. Get the money over there to those communities.
Well, not just that, but let's let them economically explode. Let's give them the chance.
I agree with you talking about giving them a chance to create their own business. I can agree with you on that. I can agree with you on that.
I just feel like black on black crime is a deflective argument on BLM, and it's not.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to deflect. I'm just trying to say, right now you've got
but every
movement.
time somebody brings up black on black crime, it's always deflect something about
okay. All right, you're right. Let's we're going back to these incidents predominantly happen in economically repressed areas.
Well,
the poverty rate is more than twice as high among black Americans than white.
Then let's
and that is because why? With 400 years of systematic racism,
we can't
than
fix
anything
the past.
Else.
The past happened. We can't fix that. We can fix the
future.
But
that's why it's happening. I'm trying to tell you, but that is why it's still that. So the discussion that black on black crime is it's a deflection, it's a lazy argument. We don't say white on white crime. And,
lazy argument is saying
because they're black.
A lazy argument is saying we're just going to throw money to them. That's a lazy argument because where does that money come from?
Money fixes everything. Money fixes. I guarantee.
Where does it come from?
Had money.
Where does it come from? Are we going to print the money and inflate to where the money's worth less? Again, look up Weimar
No, we're going to take
Republic,
the money from the police
or
and give it
look
to communities.
Okay, we're going to take the money from the police and hand it to people and just hand it to them.
We're going to put it in the communities. There's ways to put money into communities. I know.
So you're telling me. So wait, you're telling me if a mental health expert or a social worker.
Wait, we're back on that? We were talking about economics just a second ago.
Wait, I just want to know something really quick. Would you feel unsafe? You would feel unsafe if they had the same training a police officer had with a gun. The same, they have to go through the same thing, but they're specialized in a certain field. You would feel unsafe if they came to a call regarding.
What did I say?
Okay,
let's compare our police. Let's compare our police things with other countries.
Your house gets broken into and no one's there, but you call the police. They come out, they fill the report, they do their investigation, they leave. You're actually dealing with the person who's going haywire. Would you feel unsafe if a mental health expert pulled up with a gun, trained? You wouldn't feel as safe if you would feel more safe with a cop who just has gun training. And I would feel better de-escalation training.
I would feel better if all law enforcement officers were, at least bachelor's degree in psychology.
That's what they have in Norway. That's what they have in Norway.
And that's fine. Norway also has different animals. Norway is a homogeneous culture. Norway has a strong social net. But don't try to buy a car in Norway, because a car has 100% tax on it. I want you to think about that. If you buy a car for $24,000, it's going to cost you $48,000. And then you have to pay taxes on that, which are exponential every year. So I want you that you can compare us to Norway and you can look at it. But Norway also has damn near no regulations on starting a business. And Norway has the strongest private property protection rights in the world. So let's go back to that. Private property.
Let's do Norway. Let's become Norway.
Well, you asked what would make you feel safer, and Jared
I just
gave
feel
you
like
that
the police.
answer. Let me interject this. What would make me feel safer in our society if there's crime is the fact that my government will not try to force me to sell my weapons, will not ask me for a concealed carry permit, will not be anxious if they notice I'm open carrying. Because that's one thing that really bothers me about the police officers is if we're carrying, they tend to act differently. And I want us to be just as well armed as they are. And then, you know what? I think in these Chicago areas and these type of areas, you do away with the drug violence by ending the war on drugs. You're going to do away with the majority of the crime, but then let them open carry. I mean, why shouldn't everyone have the equal amount of force to protect themselves anyway? That's, to me, it's crazy that we spend more money on basketball in gym class in high school than we do gun safety. We should all be learning how to be equally physically capable of protecting ourselves. We should do away with basketball and soccer and football until we can at least all load a gun safely and not shoot each other on accident. Then I'd feel safe.
I would feel safer if Black people weren't dying 3 times more than white people by the police officers. I would feel safer if our government cared a little bit more about education and not so much, the prison system. Do you know how much money it costs to keep one prison inmate versus a student? I mean, it's not, the priority is just not there for me. Honestly, it's not there for me. And if you told me that a social worker was trained just as much as a police officer, which is less than a barber has to go to school, they put less hours in training than a barber does to cut hair, which we've already discussed is silly, right?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to make it so that police show up when there's an actual crime, and not a crime.
Police show up,
and not a crime of someone's choice in life. If let's go back to Prohibition. Prohibition was an extremely violent time where they made alcohol illegal. Well, right now we're in a prohibition on drugs, and we're finding it to be an extremely violent time. The difference then was they saw the error of their ways, and they said, we got to stop this. And I think we need to look at doing that now. We need to look at drug use and drug addiction as a medical issue, not a criminal issue. And we no longer put people in jail for selling or using drugs. And that's fine. Now, we can treat it like alcohol. We can put an age limit on it, and that's fine. Put an age limit and have the fines with, if you're underage or you're selling to underage, have the corrections be the same as if you're caught with selling alcohol or using it underage. Where you get, like right now in Utah, one of the biggest things that hits you if you're caught drinking underage, usually a couple times, is they make it so you can't get your driver's license till you're 20. Okay. Kids still drink underage. They're just careful about it. You know, kids are still going to use. The drugs are going to exist. We haven't figured out how to make those not exist. And it doesn't matter if the CIA's bringing it in, because, yes, the CIA did bring it in. I've got a different show where we talk about that a lot. The CIA did. But we've got to figure out how to make it so that when it is in our communities, it's not doing the damage it is. And I believe the worst damage is, you're right, in people going to prison, gaining a felony, where when they gain a felony, that hurts them economically. They can no longer get a job on the same level. We've got to deal with it like that. We've got to provide safe places. I don't want to see people OD. I want to see people. I went to school with a guy who got deep into drugs, and it's brought on a later stage. He's 45, and he's now psychotic from all the drugs. I think under medical conditions, that could have been better controlled.
Or someone could have reached out to him.
He wouldn't be the homeless man he is now that's living on the streets. He would still be a productive member of society, still be able to see his children, probably still be married and things like that. I want to see those outcomes. That's fine. And I want to, above all else, no, actually, the drug war is above all else. But I want to see these depressed communities find a way out. I don't think that printing money, and what that does is dilute all the rest of the money in the country. I don't think that printing money and handing it out would be the answer. That just causes inflation.
But we aren't printing money. We're just relocating the money.
Okay.
We're not making new money.
I would rather take the money from the police and give it over to a medical establishment to deal with the drugs. For right now, we may find that we'll have extra money we can put elsewhere. I don't think that would cause the economic boom that you guys do. But I do think that allowing people to try, taking some of the barriers away from them so they can try would have a better effect. One, it gives them imagine that guy who right now is depressed and he's bummed out because he can't find a job and he's on welfare. Imagine if next week he could start a business. Maybe it's successful, maybe it fails, but imagine how he feels inside. That gives him a boost of self-esteem, a boost of character. That does all sorts of positive things within him or her or a family unit. Say they can start a little small cafe, a restaurant, a coffee shop, something to do with automotive detailing, anything. It's not just hair. It's all these things that you've got to jump through hoops. Say you don't have to get a certification to do it, but you've got to go through the city to certify your stupid building and rent from them and pay taxes to get licensing just to open a car wash. What if they didn't have to do that? Just for a few years. Let's just let the economy there build for a few years and try it. We can even just try it in one city. You guys pick the city that we're going to pinpoint and say, we're going to give this one area, this 20 blocks, I don't care. We're going to do a test run. We're going to try this out. We're going to take away any roadblocks they have to starting an economy there. And we're going to let it run. We're going to see what it does. Maybe it fails. Maybe you guys can come back on and say, Jared, you're a moron and you shouldn't have tried that. But I want to try that. I want that melting pot. I want that petri dish of an idea to be attempted.
It sounds like government is the majority of black people's problems.
Well, and they keep electing.
It's not government. I mean, government, yeah.
Redlining was a government
the
plan.
Problem.
Redlining was government, and it was Democrat government.
Okay, but
Jim Crow was government, and it was Democrat.
Slavery was
Our
government.
problem is that racists keep getting into office and deciding the fate of all these lives. And unfortunately, when it comes to drugs, even when it comes to marijuana,
I'll make a call out to Trump right now.
Black people.
Trump has done more prison reform than any other president. Obama had 8 years. Trump did more prison reform in his first 2 years than Obama did in 8.
And how can you not know what the Libertarian Party is?
There's prison
it's
reform.
not enough. I agree. It's not enough.
You call it prison, but we've called it prison reform for so long that is such an umbrella, a blanket statement. Prison reform. So what has he really changed? Because
I think under him because of
the cycle of the prison
that's
system.
like Kim Kardashian's in the goddamn Oval Office. She's not down there because she likes the decor. She's down there because she's down there pushing prison reform, and that's why she's always down there.
I'm not putting
nothing in the hands of Kim Kardashian, but what I will say is that BLM is fighting and is going to continue to fight until $62,000 isn't spent on one inmate per year, while $9,100 is spent per student. They're not going to stop until.
But what if
66% of state prison inmates haven't graduated high school and are young black men aged 20 to 24 without a high school diploma?
That was in that 94 bill too, when they took advanced education out of the prison system. That was
they're not going to stop until black people don't make up 38% of the prison population.
What if we didn't
stop?
What if we didn't look at percentages of the population in prison? What if we looked at
But you have
Only
to
what
because
if only
for that, these
population?
percentages are too high for Black people to only make up
But hold
about
on. What if
13% of America.
what if
13% of all of America's population. These percentages, these
I
numbers are
agree.
way
I agree,
too
but
high.
hear me out. What if the prison population on a whole got smaller to where the only one in prison was a violent criminal, a rapist, a murderer, a mugger?
Yes.
What if that's all there
boom,
was in prison?
boom. I'm not.
So
Like,
I'm not looking at it as a black or white thing. I'm looking at this
that's
as
okay, and
a health of the
that's
nation.
where that's the only difference between you and I is that you are I'm colorblind type of person, but color needs to be acknowledged so that the wrongs can be right.
It's
Because
being
the fact
acknowledged.
of it
That's the
is,
problem.
color plays a part. Maybe not to you, but the fact is, color plays a part into all these injustices.
That's the
and that's
problem.
exactly what BLM
Color
is.
is being acknowledged. That's why there's these disparities. Because color is being acknowledged.
But we're not going to fix it by now suddenly being colorblind and being like, well, yeah, we're just going to. People want to see. It's going to be baby steps. I'm not saying what you're saying won't work or
So
it won't. Like, a lot of your stuff, like.
So would Black Lives Matter be
theory,
happy if the police arbitrarily
Can I make a statement?
snatched up white guys and threw them in
comments.
prison to equalize the numbers?
You have a man in your comment. He said, Eric Anderson. He said, I just can't help but think what defund the police pusher will say when they are mugged or raped, mugged, or lose a family member. Or lose a family member to murder will say. So we're not saying. I'm just gonna talk to this man because pissed me off.
Well, don't get mad at him. And also, I know this guy personally. He has a black son who he cares deeply for.
That also has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't matter if your family is black, you have black friends, black anything. It just defunding the police doesn't mean getting rid of the police. Doesn't mean whatever. Just demilitarize. Just because someone's defunding the police doesn't mean they get. No, that's just an ugly statement he just made right now. It's just such an ugly statement, and I want him to rethink his values on that one. That was ugly.
The police state needs to be diminished. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I agree with you. But I think the message of looting and burning and the blocking of traffic is totally going about it the wrong way. And the fact
you're just hurting innocent people.
And the fact that Black Lives Matter doesn't even tell black people about the Libertarian Party tells me everything I need to know, is that you are being fooled with propaganda, and what they want is a civil war. They want blood on the streets. That's what they really want. Even if they give you a different message, the fact that they're not telling you these things that we're trying to preach and trying to beholden to you, the fact that you've never heard of the Libertarian Party, this message of Black Lives Matter isn't meant to succeed. It's meant to fail. And that's a fact. If you can't even get the proper education in the Libertarian Party and what it is through Black Lives Matters, because Black Lives Matters should be hand in hand with the Libertarian Party, but instead they're cozying up to Joe Biden and his crew, and they're just causing animosity between Republicans and Democrats rather than finding a message through the Libertarian Party.
Right, but
that's crazy.
How many people in office were libertarian? Wouldn't that be like voting for a third party, like the Green Party or
Justin Amash? That's it.
Right?
Rand Paul.
Well,
right?
Rand Paul's libertarian under the Republican. Dr. Ron Paul was. Mike Lee.
But it don't matter. Freedom's freedom. And if you want more freedom,
Thomas Massey.
But I'm asking because
but
it's
here's
like
the question.
getting people to vote for third party. Like when it was Hillary and Trump, we could have all been like, "Hey, let's all vote. Let's all vote third party." And we don't choose none of you guys, but that doesn't happen. Okay. What people see is their two main parties, so that's what they're going to fixate and try to fix on.
Well, honestly, I think the president matters not, and everyone fixates on him. You should be paying attention.
I believe that too.
The president's an executive. He executes.
I really think you should be paying attention who we vote into Congress.
But I want to
truly.
I want to. Here's my fear. My fear is that the ramping up of radicals on both sides is going to cause a civil war.
Well,
I want you to think, you just quoted numbers to me. How would that Civil War go?
It's just gonna go
What
with a
is
bunch of
Marxism?
Americans
Can you
dying.
explain
It's
to me?
gonna end with a bunch of Americans dying, and it doesn't need to be that. But you're going to get angry people in the streets until your government starts actively doing something about it.
I'm worried that the right is going to rise up and get angry in the streets too, and that scares me.
It's a scary thought. It's a scary thought, but imagine how
'Cause
tired
when
people.
they
Imagine
do-
how tired Black and brown people are
Well, when they
of
do,
living in this country, of being oppressed. As much as we want to say equal opportunity, blah blah, like it's not. It's not an
When-
equal playing field. It's not equality for everyone. It's not what it is. That's not the reality of America, unfortunately. So until our government starts to actively make changes and start doing something about it.
So the government's going to save us?
Oh, she froze.
yeah, I don't think the government's ever saved anyone. It's honestly, all the good things came when the government retracted from stuff. Jim Crow was a government law, and when the government pulled out of it, that's when it freed up the segregation in the South. The slavery thing was when the government quit enforcing slavery. Slavery went away. The government is what causes all these problems. The retraction. Now, you asked, what is Marxism? Marxism was a plan, an economic model written by Karl Marx in 1889 that it's communism is what it is. It's where there's no private property, everything's public. And then
Sorry, I froze. I heard nothing you said.
it's an economic model. The Communist Manifesto is the book that it mostly comes from. He started out, he wrote Das Kapital and then boiled down to that. But there were other anarcho-communists at the time, like Buchanan, who called him, sorry, I about said
You
it
almost
that way.
said the R word. Huh?
I am sorry, I apologize. But that's the word he used. He said, you're wrong. You can't make a totalitarian dictator and then expect us to reach this socialist utopia at the end. Oh boy.
Someone's playing guitar?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think we're all having issues. But I do think, communism and socialism has proven to be a large failure through history. There's not a success story anywhere. Oh,
Man,
Think she needs to reload.
yeah, we may have to.
I would like to see some of these comments because I haven't been able to see any.
Yeah, you
And
could.
I think
Well, how about this? How about we have an open invitation to have another chat sometime where we gather on here, and that gives you time to think about these comments.
I agree. I think I would love to come back and
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure to have you. I like
been
your
great.
fire. I like your fire, and I'm not trying to mean anything bad, but I understand. In your youth, ideas are different. I've been on the other side of these tracks, and I'm on this side now, and I see, and I'm a big history buff, as you can tell. Whenever you mention something, I bring up another retarded thing to draw a correlation to. Maricella is back. Maricella,
My cat just
sorry.
knocked over the Wi-Fi box. So.
Oh, I tried picking my dog up and showing you my dog. I got a vicious dog. She's somewhere running around here.
I fucking wait.
I do too.
Oh, yeah.
I got a vicious dog.
Yeah, my vicious dog weighs about. Oh, here's my vicious dog. Hold him up, Dave, or hold her up.
Oh.
I'm pretty positive just broke my pinky toe.
But there's no doubt that there's different ways or different things to go about and how I'm going to see it. It's just a generational thing. I mean, even in the Black Lives Matter movement, I've talked to people who they want to see certain things and the way we want to go about it is different. Like, it is a generational thing. Also, you know, I'm a Black woman. You're a white man. There's, like, as much as we want to not address it, it's our experiences in America are completely different. You know what I mean? Our upbringings are
Oh,
different.
even if I was a black man, just where
Even
I
if you were a
grew up,
black man.
just
Even
where
if
I
you're a
grew
black
up,
man.
just the locales would make it different.
Exactly. Even being from Utah or living in Utah, living in California. I mean, there's so many. So, I mean, it's been a great conversation. I feel like I've got a lot of insight on different points of views, and that's all I can ever ask. I mean, you guys let me talk and you listen to what I have to say, so I can appreciate that.
I apologize for any words that fall out of my ugly head about any bad words. You can just expect them. You know, I know to you ladies, I'm ancient.
Uncultured heathen.
I am a very I'm
You seem
second.
very educated.
I'm second generation to walk upright. Let's just be honest. I mean, I am straight up Neanderthal. But I would like to see, me personally, I honestly believe that bringing peace and harmony into the equation and economic freedom, I think that's the best answers. I know capitalism's an evil word, but let's just look at the history. Capitalism in the last 100 years has brought 75% of the world out of poverty.
And we haven't even reached capitalism potential.
And we're
yet.
not, and nobody is capitalist. Nobody is laissez-faire. Nobody is. And it has freed India. It has freed China. It freed the United States. Capitalism in the Industrial Revolution, you could argue, is why slavery ended in the United States. And it is definitely why it ended in England.
All right. I mean, look, I don't know what full capitalist potential would look like, but I do know, and what I do see is that the rich is getting richer, especially in a pandemic where billionaires are making billions more, while people are literally becoming homeless.
Let me ask you a question.
And I also don't believe that.
Let me ask you a question.
Why do you have to be a working civilian to have basic human rights, housing, food?
How is Bezos getting richer right now? What is driving Bezos to gain the market share right now?
It's people, you know, his consumers,
Because
also
the government has closed down other options.
The G word.
The government has closed down. The government has closed down your mom and pop stores. The government has closed down your little weird stores. The government has made it to where it's uncomfortable for you to even leave the house, which is why Bezos, who offers a model to deliver stuff to you, which is why he is making hand over fist right now.
Right.
Because
but hasn't he been making that money for a long time now?
He's been doing well because he's been out competing anyone behind him. Like Walmart. Walmart follows what he does. He's been out competing them. But Bezos right now is making hand over fist. Yes, because the customers choose to go there, but they choose to go there because there may not be another option.
Right.
And and those options were taken away by the government shutting them down. And I want you to recognize that.
No,
that is
absolutely
not capitalism. That is government forced monopoly. That is what that is. And monopolies only ever exist with a government. Only ever. There is no such thing as a possible monopoly unless the government can lay down a means for that to exist.
Isn't monopolies illegal? Didn't they stop that back in the day?
That's the Sherman Act. That's if the Sherman Act was, I mean, that's a complicated thing with Standard Oil and everything else. And you could pretty much argue that Rockefeller Rockefeller brought that down on himself.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of deep conspiracy theory, but he brought it down on himself because he made more money when they forced him to break up. Because he took an organization that on the whole was worth, let's say, $10 and broke it into 10 pieces that were worth $1 and a dime a piece. Mm-hmm. So he made an extra $1 off of that $10. But anyways, that's under the Sherman Act. But monopolies only ever exist, which the police is monopoly of violence. They carry the monopoly of violence, and they are government. Government monopolies can't exist because let's say I start a foam microphone cover company, right? I'm the only one. I corner the market. Dave can come right in and say, I'm going to build a foam and I'm going to charge a penny less than you. Then I've got competition. Then I've got to compete with Dave. So what do? I go to the government and I say, hey, let's make it so that if someone wants to start a foam microphone cover company, they've got to get 30 lawyers. They've got to jump through regulations. They've got to make sure all their P's and Q's are marked. And then you decide to open one. You've got to go through the hoops. Me and Dave, we have a two-person monopoly, which essentially is the same. We just shake each other's hand behind the curtain.
How many internet providers are in your area right now? You know, 1 or 2 or maybe 3 if you're lucky.
Those are
I
monopolies.
use
In SoCal, it's one.
And that means there's no one to drive their price down. There's
Right.
no one to compete with them to say either we're going to make our service better, we're going to make it quicker, we're going to make our installing people more handsome, or we're going to make our prices lower. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? Those are government enforced monopolies because your
Right.
internet service provider has to get a license from the government to operate. And then
and then they buy out
and
and they
then
buy
he
like, and they say
lobbies.
no one else can be here.
he lobbies to make that license harder to get.
Especially after they get it.
You see what I'm saying? So
I mean,
See what you're putting down?
it's the same. I mean, it's the same for now marijuana. It's super hard to get your license to grow and make your own, have your own business. There's only now you get a few dispensaries and they charge whatever they want to charge because
what if the only license
Tax.
what if the only license or regulation for growing was a guy came up for $100 a year and made sure that you didn't have any dangerous chemicals poured on it? What if that was the only registration, that you didn't have any harmful stuff coming to it? And that was it. You didn't have to get a license or compete. Here in Utah, you've got to compete for a liquor license if you want to have a restaurant. You know, so there's a limited number. You see what I'm saying? So you got to wait for someone else
if
to
they do
close
like
and sell
they
out.
do it like lottery style for marijuana.
I wouldn't even do it lottery style. I'd be like, you come
No,
on
but
in.
I'm saying that's how they do it. Well,
Yeah,
at least in
They
California.
do it the same way we deal with alcohol here. But what if it
What
was
do you mean
just
lottery style?
they've got so many they give out. That's it. But what if you came up and they said, all right, you want to start one up? Well, Bubba's going to come over. It's going to cost you $100. Bubba's going to come over and make sure that you're not going to have any dangerous runoff that's going to hurt a neighbor. And he's going to look at your pesticides, make sure they meet code. And if they don't, Bubba's going to, or actually, for an extra $50, don't buy pesticides. Bubba will drop off your first delivery and you'll see what we want you to use. We'll see what's considered safe for your neighbors and your consumers. And then Bubba comes by, he drops a can off. This is what we use. It's made out of pure cow shit, whatever. And then he's going to say, yeah, can you just redirect the irrigation, so that it travels further east because you got a neighbor that's south that, it could hurt them. And that's it. And, and then you're up and running, you're in business. But right now, you've got to make how many trips down to the city hall and then the county hall and then probably some state licensing agencies. And you've got to jump through all those hoops. You got months and months and months.
And still banks won't
And
touch
time is money.
And all those months, you're not making money. You're actually spending money. Each time you visit them, they want some more of your lettuce in your wallet.
And for example, there was a guy out here in Tooele that we interviewed. He set up his own winery, and he'd just import different wines and mix them together out here. He had to pay for his warehouse for 8 months.
Yeah, he had to
rent.
buy the warehouse before he could get the license. So he had to buy this building that sat empty for months before he had the license to
Just for permission to mix
turn
his
a profit.
wines.
So you have to have a building before you get the
Yeah, had to have a structure that was inspected and met code.
Mm-hmm.
But then you think the license should be quicker so that he could start making money on that investment he's already put in.
Yeah.
8 months of waiting around paying the rent's a lot of money.
Now, the reason I
That
don't
is a
like
lot.
Marxism is because Marxism dries up economic anything. There's no investment into future products. There's no investment into current products. They lose money. You've got guys that sit in a building that are more communist than you, so they're better than you. They get to live a little better than you. Everyone else is poor around them, but they join the party, and that's kind of their job, making the decision on everything you get to do. That's why-
Centralized planning. It's
and that guy might be a moron.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because he bought his way into the party. Maybe his dad was a member of the party. He's dumber than a bag of shit, but he's up there making decisions for you.
Right.
So that's I like capitalism. Capitalism, you know, the people try to where they find their niche, and they may never find their niche. There may still be poor people, but at least you give them the chance to try, instead of making everybody be the lowest common denominator.
Yeah, and I don't think capitalism can exist without strong property rights.
It cannot.
Which brings us back to that conversation. Are property rights important? Yeah, they are. If someone crawls through your window,
That's
take
why
care of it.
that's why Target left, because their property rights weren't respected. They lost money there, so they're like, we got to wash our hands of this. They've got stockholders and whatever else, and by law they have to meet the needs of their stockholders. So they've got to say, this is not a business we can run. We can't run a business here.
Well, I mean, I can assure that BLM's main objective isn't to loot. It's not to destroy companies.
I recognize that.
Did I feel bad for Target? Target itself, not really. They were looted because they refused to sell milk to the rioters who had tear gas in their eyes. I mean, I'm not justifying it, but it's a messy situation. But I can assure you that if things don't start changing in this
that's why
country,
I would
you're
like to
going
see
to continue to see people on the streets.
Hopefully one local Black Lives leader listens to this and says, we're going to try this lunatic out in Utah's idea. We're going to hold a festival. We're going to have a music in the southwest corner. We're going to have barbecue in the southeast corner. We're going to have face painting for the children in the northwest corner.
Hey,
and I held
an event.
We're going to have a
Juneteenth
festival.
event, and I invited our whole entire city out.
That's
and
great.
The only people who showed up were BLM supporters.
And we're gonna have it as a party, and we may have to have it twice, because the first time people might be nervous because there's been some ruckus at some of these events. So we're gonna hold it 4 times, and it's gonna cost a little bit of money, and we're gonna have local shops come and set up. And the first time, you might only get the one crazy guy who's willing to sell his street tacos anywhere. But the next time, you know, his competitor might show up because he made money. And the next time, everyone wants a piece of that action. And then the 4th time, not only that, but people are paying to get involved, which puts money back into your coffers. And then it might become, well, you're in California, you could do this once every month if you wanted, but you're going to look at a quarterly plan where you can help fund these needy areas with this festival. And while you're there, you can hand out the literature.
Speakers.
You can talk to people. You can have local politicians are going to start begging you to get up on that stage. They're going to start they're going to start coming to you for advice. They're going to start coming to you. And then your voice will be huge.
You are absolutely right, because our local politicians have come to our organization and have asked, let's do an interview. let me tell you what I believe in. Let me tell you, I've held multiple interviews with my local politicians. I've been preaching to my city about how important it is to get involved in your local elections.
And
Believe
right
me, I
now,
mean, I
and
see
right now,
completely what you're saying.
right now, what you've given them is we want to defund the police. We want to take a government union and we want you guys to go fight this government union. And I promise you, your elected officials are probably mostly Democrat, which you get
What
them to
I've
fight a
given
union
you,
is right.
no, which is our local officials are definitely not Democrat. All our neighboring cities are actually very conservative. Our town is probably the most diverse, but not by much at all. And it's not, I'm not just giving them, well, let's defund the police, but we've sat down and talked about what it would look like in our city.
Have you?
Because in our city, our city budget that we've sat down and dissected, where our police gets 70 million a year for 300,000 people, where there's still schools in poverty,
now you've got another tool
our
to give them.
graduation rates are still really low.
Now you've got another
While,
tool to give them. Let's stop. Let's look at. I mean, that'd be great. What if your city said we're going to try this
Our homeless
decriminalizing?
rate is 78%.
That's all of
We
California.
hold
That
78%
started
of the homeless rate in all of Central Valley.
that started in
It's
Boise.
more than just
under
that.
a-
I mean,
That started in Boise, Idaho, under a Fifth Amendment, I believe it was, under a Fifth Amendment clause. No, was it fourth? Cruel, unusual punishment, and California bought it. But anyways, that's another story. But now you've got more tools. You can say,
no, I'm really excited to.
let's decriminalize.
We come back
I
and
mean,
revisit this.
let's look at arguing to where maybe you can just get a local prosecutor that won't prosecute drug convictions.
It's a good idea.
Not like they do. They won't prosecute them. That'll eliminate a lot of those felonies and keep a lot of fathers with their children. You know, and not just that, but it'll also make it so it's not a male desert for all these young women who are looking for a mate. You know, they'll have a selection in front of them. So let's just that alone. Imagine what that could change if dad was home with those kids. And then maybe some of the economic, however you could, argue that through the city. Imagine if you could argue to where the more depressed areas had a chance.
Mm-hmm. There's areas in our city, but the way that it's lined, they don't even have people to represent them in city council.
Yeah. Well, and
there's parts of our city that don't even have sidewalks.
Can I say city council? Can I say no city council? Those lucky bastards. Lucky bastards. They don't have one of those leeches. Anyways, but I'm talking, let's give them that economic chance. Let's let them explode onto the market. Give those depressed areas a little bit of vigor, a little bit of economic strength. Because once those economics grow up, then some of the other businesses, maybe a Chili's starts sniffing around saying, hey, I want to find someone who wants to build a franchise there. And that empowers another person. I want to find, a Chili's, a whatever, a shoe store, whatever, but a franchise. They start shopping for someone who wants to start a franchise, who can get enough together to get a building and pay that franchise cost. And then there's another availability in your market.
Gentrification.
It's not gentrification because it could be owned by one of the local people. It could be owned by the guy who today lives on that street and works at the auto parts store.
Maybe someone would move in.
Maybe he's got a nest egg. Maybe there's a guy in there who has a nest egg saved up and he's been shopping for franchises. And right now, the franchises are saying, no, you don't have enough money in your economy for us to take that chance there. But they might say to him, yes, if there is that money in the economy there.
Petition for freedom. That's the best thing you can do.
The franchise, that's a running model. They already have the business plan laid out for you. You just get a kickback and you know, start a business there. And then that's a guy that's doing better, and he's employing people from the neighborhood, right? And those people from the neighborhood have a chance to climb up. Maybe someone who starts out as a line cook in his restaurant saves up some money and says, I'm just line cooking for now. I want to open up a wheel and tire shop. I want to open up a Radio Shack because I'm a nerd and I like computers, and that gives him an opportunity. And then he hires more people. And then these kids that are 16 that can't find a job now, suddenly there's a surplus of jobs. And so those kids, not only is there jobs available, but when there's a surplus of jobs, they pay more because they've got to compete.
Seems like it all goes back to the G word, huh?
Government.
5-year plan.
Now, yeah, let's see what it
5-year
does in
plan.
5 years. You can measure it in 5 years. And you don't have to gentrify. You could have the ultimate government say, we're not going to allow anybody from outside of this community to start a business, and you can eliminate the gentrification. So if they want to start a business there, they have to go through a local. That's fine, whatever.
Okay.
But free up that market so that those people can try. Give those people a chance at that dignity and the self-respect that comes with building something.
Who knows? I might open a business up there. I don't know. Who knows?
Hey,
Help
that's
out.
outstanding. What
Might
you
even
gonna
start that
open?
myself.
What would you like to do?
So many options. Do a gardening thing. Do some
I
painting.
want to open up my own clinic one day to help kids, family therapy, at-risk kids.
Hell
I'll do
yeah.
that one day.
Hell
That's
yeah.
a business.
I haven't really thought about opening up a shop of anything. I don't know what I would invest in. I should probably think about that a lot.
What's something you like? Something you're good at? Do
I feel like
you
what
like
am I good at?
art? Do you like poetry? You could open up a damn coffee shop and have those poets in there
Slam
every night.
poetry. I do be doing slam poetry on my breaks. Might do that actually.
But, and so you could open up a coffee shop or a bar, whatever, and have the slam poetry in there. You know, whatever you like. Do you like art? You could open up an art studio where people come if they want to hang some shit on their walls.
But like since like opening a business in a poor community, like what would these people actually need? Like they're not gonna spend their money at a coffee shop, like they're not gonna want to go to like spend
But
their hard
what
work
if-
money at a coffee shop when they have nothing else to
Okay, so you're thinking of Starbucks with the $5 coffee.
I'm thinking $1 hot dogs.
What if
$1 hot dogs, okay.
What if your coffee shop, you don't go in there to set up a coffee shop. You go in there to set up a coffee shop tailored to the community.
Okay.
So what if you figured out how to get coffee for $0.25 a cup or 50 cents a cup to where everybody that's leaving their house wants to stop by your coffee shop every morning because you have good coffee and it's affordable.
Right there. Affordable coffee.
And then at night you open that bad boy up to some slam poetry, something you enjoy, so you get some of that fulfillment in your life on the artistic side.
Also, like a little club for high school students, not
Yeah, I
like
was
a
gonna say.
club, but like, you know what I mean? Somewhere they could go
Like
and
a youth
like
spot.
A
somewhere
high
they
school
could go on the weekend,
a
get
high
off
school-
the street.
pool hall and arcade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would be for that.
Mm-hmm.
You could open up something like that. I mean, and you may fail the first try, and then you're going to think back, that crazy bastard in Utah said I might fail. I'm going to try again. I might try something different. I learned a lesson from the last time, but I'm going to try again, and I'm going to try again.
Yeah. Trump failed like
Intrigued.
5
I
times.
am very intrigued now. That is a very big move that I'm looking forward to.
And then it frees up.
I've had that. I've had
then
that
you-
plan.
Then you don't
I've
have
never
to.
even thought about stuff like that.
Then you
at
don't
all.
have to go to college and absorb that debt to feed some, jerk off in a suit. You don't have to take on that
I've been
debt.
saying college is a scam.
It is
It
a
is.
scam. It's been a scam since the government got involved in it.
College is going online. The future
Yeah.
of college is online.
And it's not just that. Most of the stuff
That's-
you need to
I took
learn,
the semester off.
you can learn most of the stuff. You can pinpoint what you. I need to know how to do my books. I'm going to YouTube how to do my books. I'm going to Google how to do my books. I'm going to learn it for
Everything's on the
free.
internet.
I'm going to learn it for free right here and now. And where you're only answerable to you, you don't have to have a degree for that.
Exactly.
You can do a podcast.
Tuition costs the same. Tuition costs the exact same as if you were going in person to classes, and it's all online.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're not there,
Damn.
in person, smelling the breath of the drunk behind you. I mean,
That's
it's
crazy.
depressing.
That's crazy.
They just need people learn differently, and not everyone can learn off a screen like that.
I
but
think colleges is starting to drown up. They bit off more than they can chew by a lot of the overhead they've grabbed. So they're starting to dry up. We're going to see a rebirth of the university system.
I hope so.
I think we're about to see a rebirth of America after this.
I hope so.
I hope you ladies bust forth. I hope you ladies bust forth and provide that economic value to your communities. I want to see both of you. I want to see both of you, 5 years from now with a business and employees.
Oh, you will.
And you guys have employees. And then you guys can implement these designs you have on your employees on how to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
You figure that out, and you have employees and you foster them. And not only that, but you not only foster your employees at work, but you foster them on so that when they turn 25, they're starting to think, how do I break out like you? And they're coming to you for advice on that. And then they're going to break out and you're going to hire the next kid in line, right? And that kid in line is going to start learning under your tutelage. But that other guy, the other guy or gal who just broke out, they've hired 5 kids and they're training 5 kids.
And that's how you pay it forward.
And
Definitely.
then next thing you know, your town is gangbusters, right?
Right.
It's living the dream.
Yeah, don't wait for the government to do it for you, because
The government
you got to do it.
the government has never cured a problem. Matter of fact, there's an assignment for let's plan on getting back together in 2 months.
Okay.
Find
2 months from now.
Yeah, let's plan on 2 months sometime. We'll keep chatting, but find me where the government has a success story.
Okay. I'll keep y'all updated. Cody
All
Brown, Maricella actually seems like she is.
We have to give them one homework assignment too.
All right.
Okay. Damn. Can't be on this. My brain. I haven't went to sleep. I've been up all day, 24 hours.
Come on, help me.
That's
We got to
not
give
supply.
them one homework assignment to look into to help them further understand where we're coming from. It's just the same thing.
I'm completely with you, honestly. I am. I think that the
Yeah.
police violence is heinous. I hate it. I want to see it go away. I don't like the economy's being hurt. I think that when the father's taken out of the home, it's a travesty for the whole family. Young men without a father, bad things happen. And then stack on top of that, they don't have economic opportunities, and more bad things happen. It's not falling on deaf ears that there's a cycle of pain there. I just don't think that you can reach into the past and fix it. I only think that you can fix the future. I did a lot of dumb things in my 20s. A lot of dumb things. Hell, I joined the Army when I was 17. But I can't fix that. That already happened. I can't fix that. And I can't force someone else to take on personal damage to make me whole for that either. No one else made me join the Army. No one else made me do all the dumb things I did. And I can't say, well, you are adjacent to them or something of you resembles them, so you've got to fix it for me. But what I can do is I can look to my future and say, what can I do? That's where this podcast, I do 2 podcasts. That's me trying to build a future where I'm not freezing my ass off in the winter and sweating my balls off in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to do here. This is me trying to build my future as lazily as I can because I don't want to lift heavy shit anymore. Because I work in a factory. I lift heavy shit all day. I'm out in the elements. That's what I do.
He works the salt mines.
I'm trying to get out of that. You know.
I can't work at this job no more.
Yeah. Well, now what job? What job do you do?
I'm working at a turkey factory right now. Raw meat.
A turkey factory. Oh yeah, Cargill.
Real fun.
Is it
pretty positive? Had where was it?
Is it a Cargill factory?
We just Foster Farms.
Foster Farms. Okay.
Distribute.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Now you've got to build your way out of it. So now what you're going to do is you are going to Google how to build a business model, right? And you're going to study that. And then you're going to go down to City Hall and say, what do I have to do for licensure? And make sure you check on that building too. A lot of people get the license for the business, but they forget about what kind of building inspection they need, especially in the, Democratic People's Republic of California. That's a big nightmare over there. So you're going to check into that too, right? So you're going to have all your ducks in a row, and you're going to know what you need to save and what you need to have to do it. You're going to spend, are you ready? Okay. There's a couple of coffee companies that will rent you the equipment, like coffee distributors, if you're going to do the coffee shop. If you're going to go buy that thing that makes the espresso, those are like $8,000.
Oh, they're more than
the
that.
good ones. Now you can buy a junk one. You'll just burn.
I'm gonna go to a thrift store, get some.
But you get a good business model. You get that plan down, and a bank will look at you. If you go in there with a notebook and some scribbles in it that says coffee equals money, the bank's not going to look at you. So that's why you're Googling your business plan. That's step 1, step 2, step 3. Here's what I'm looking at for my market. Here's what I provide to the economy. Here's how I'm going to make my money. And you keep building that. And you go into the bank, and the bank might tell you no the first time. And then ask them, what am I missing here that makes you say no? What do I need here? They may say, we need more upfront money. All right. That's simple. You walk out and you say, I've got to save this much more. I'm going to move in with friends. We're going to tag team, whatever. I'm going to get a partner in on this, or they might say, look, your business plan makes no sense in this area. And then you're going to say, all right, I'm going to work on that. You want to see this? I'm going to go study that. I'm going to spend, 2 hours a week on this business model. I'm going to be back in 3 months. Write it in your goddamn calendar. And then you're back in 3 months. You say, look at it now. And you figure it out until that gets pushed through.
Guaranteed bet. Now,
and then I will bring my happy ass to California, and I'm going to come to your town, and I'm going to drink coffee in your shop, and I'm going to listen to you lay down some.
See you in 5 years. In 5 years. Guaranteed.
Good.
Now, Anthony, we're opening a coffee shop.
You hold me to it. I shit you not.
Yeah,
I'll be holding
you to it.
Yeah. And then I will come
with slam poetry at night.
I'm holding you to another podcast.
Definitely. And I will come to your head shrinker shop, and I'll high five all the kids because you don't want me talking to kids. But I'll high five them. I'll color in coloring books with them. Now I was in the Army, but I did learn from some Marines how to color. But I will, I'll come in and color with them. I'll keep them busy. I'll dress like a clown, whatever. But, I want to come see you guys. I want to see you guys start this. And then I want to see you guys run to get in political office to tear down the fucking restrictive regulations to help everyone out.
Now that you might see me in some, once I get a little bit older, you will most definitely see me in some politics. So
good.
How come you're not
educate myself a little bit more before
How come you're not interning right now?
I've just been away in college. So just been working.
They've got college internships, and they love college interns at political, and that's just to learn the ropes. You'll be learning lessons from someone else for when you run. If you intern just on beating on doors right now, you'll learn lessons about what to and what not to do when you run for office.
Right.
But remember me. Government turns gold to shit. It always has, and it always will.
Well,
Guaranteed.
So, yeah.
I thank you guys for letting me come on. I know you guys didn't know me, didn't know anything about me. You guys let me say what I had to say.
It was great having you. I love your fire. Now I'm going to direct that fire.
Now Jozette has an organization too.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've talked about it.
Yeah, give a call out to your organization.
Let's plug that.
Oh yeah, my organization is called Never Stay Silent. You can find us. It's under Modesto March, unfortunately, on Facebook. It's Never Stay Silent 209 on Instagram and on Twitter. But yeah, we're gonna be doing drives,
festivals,
have them coming up for school, for kids in school, just giving them things that they need, even if it's notepads, notebooks, pencils.
Imagine how much money pay at the door slam poetry session could make for kids at school.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
guaranteed.
Charity stuff, you guys can throw it out. You can throw out the charity. Drink sales goes to the owner, but at the door sales goes to the kids this month. Next month, we want to work on homeless. It's getting chilly. They need socks. The month after that, we're going to work on having you could have entrepreneur classes in your damn coffee shop every second Thursday.
Drink some coffee, learn some
We're
stuff.
going to be working on trying to get NSS an actual official club in all of the high schools in my area.
Oh, what?
So
NSS?
NSS?
Never Stay Silent? Okay.
For Never Stay Silent. So we would have those clubs in all of the middle schools, high schools, where we would be able to do all types of stuff like that, bring in social workers, mental health, just talking about all of that, pursuing your own business. I believe in all that. My mom's an entrepreneur, so it's something
your mom
I've already.
What does your mom do?
My mom sells CBD.
Okay, see, there you go. She started a business, has low overhead. You know, she's
doing great.
Low overhead, she pushes it out. That's fantastic, you know. And you can look at a business like that to get you started in the next one. There's no reason why either one of you ladies can't have 4 or 5 businesses.
Oh, absolutely. Multiple streams of income is how you become.
Or maybe you get bored of one, so you sell it and you make that money. All that investment of time, sweat, you get to sell and pour that into another one, pour your efforts into another one. Maybe you run your business for 15 years and then you say, I want to see what Europe looks like. I'm going to sell my business. I'm kicking ass over to Europe for a year. I might buy a little cottage in Spain, you know, whatever.
Definitely visit Europe before 15 years from now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's like as soon as countries let Americans travel again, I'll be out.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys jump on it, but we'll definitely have you on again. Read through the comments, but remember, whatever you read it as if the person means well. That way you can approach it.
It's a good way to look at it.
You can approach it like everything you've said. I look at it as you mean well. And I hope that everything I say, you look at it as I mean well.
Mm-hmm.
I am a loving human being. I enjoy people.
I don't get any hate vibes from you guys. You guys seem like great individuals, honestly.
You know,
sorry I haven't spoken a lot during this whole thing.
Yeah.
I am dead tired.
You were nervous too.
I was nervous.
Well,
I think it's a nicotine. I don't know.
I woke up at 4 a.m. to go to work, and so I've been up now.
I think I slept for an hour. I worked time and a half yesterday, so we're getting paid.
Yeah.
And processing turkey cannot be an easy job.
I hate it.
The smell.
It doesn't even smell like it in there.
No?
Or I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
No, not anymore.
Yeah, it broke you down.
Not anymore. I am desensitized.
But that's good. You know, but we'll definitely, a couple months, let's have you guys back on.
Definitely.
Let's hear about what your perspective is. What I hope I've done is I hope that I have introduced a couple new theories to you, so that when you see these issues, you have more tools in the toolbox to look at them with. So you don't look at them just with one idea. You see a couple different things that maybe you can't cure them all, but maybe you can chip a little edge off that one and a little edge off this one. And just and if you only help one person through your activism, you're a success. So and that's what we're ultimately all trying to do, is help people. We want everybody to have the beautiful life. And that's how you can look at it. So you might bring a new vision to the organization you're a part of, where you see something and you can start working on that and selling that to the rest of your buddies or co-conspirators, whatever you want to call them. You can sell that to them and get them working on stuff. And maybe one of them comes with a new idea. Maybe right now one of your buddies is listening to a different podcast or watching a different video, and he catches a different idea. And you guys can come in and you just chip away at him.
Especially target a goal and don't act out of emotion. Have a specific goal, an objective, and then focus the energy and the emotion towards that goal. Never be without a target. And that's one of the hard parts about activism. Sometimes it's just so emotional.
It's a lot of emotion. You got to think strategic and act tactically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't want to come in and you don't want to come in with a message that is a colander trying to catch water. You want to come in with a bowl to catch water. You want to have pinpointed. This is what we're going to work on right now. Pinpoint, and it's got to be like right now. You're saying mental health workers with guns acting as law enforcement. You've got to ask yourself, how many mental health workers want to sign up for that job, and how much more you're going to have to pay them, so that money that you just took from law enforcement may not be enough to cover what you want to do. But maybe if you can work on decriminalization, or you can work on even just decriminalization on one specific area, or work on how to enter a peaceful means into this, a non-violent means. You can take a gun off the table. That's an improvement. And every time you can eliminate force and violence, that's an improvement.
That's a good way
Well,
to look at it.
I'll come back with new ideas for you guys, new stuff. We talk in 2 months, and we'll see.
Yeah,
But
and I want to
appreciate-
hear. I want to hear about these business ideas. You guys might walk out tomorrow looking at empty buildings, thinking, "Oh, I could fit something like that in there, or I could do something like
Absolutely.
this."
And they're not that expensive. You think about it. They're not that expensive.
Yeah, especially in those economic areas that need it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's especially you ladies are starting a new movement where the values of stuff is driven down. Now, commercial value is expensive. It's more expensive than an apartment, but it's driven down still. So, you know, you can jump in and do some stuff. Make stuff happen. Who knows? Maybe one of you wants to make comical T-shirts, and you'll have a picture of a crazy guy with a beard in Utah on a T-shirt saying crazy stuff. You know, and maybe you'll make millions of dollars off this crazy guy on your T-shirt.
Or you say the government creates shit out of gold.
Government
Gold to shit.
turns gold
Gold
into
is shit.
shit.
All right, that's the headline right there.
There you
I got
go.
it.
You better trademark that before she does. Cause
No, trademark it. Run
Take it
with
away,
it.
girl. Take it away.
Run with it. And, you know, heck, there's no reason why we both can't make competing T-shirts, drive each other's prices down, and help the customers
there you
out.
go. There you go.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
or better yet, we compete over
Playing
an
like that
employee.
game.
We compete over an employee who's a great artist or a great silk screener, so he or she makes more money because we've got to compete over them.
We'll
Yeah.
check back in 2 months.
All right. Hey,
2 months.
I'm gonna shoot you guys a message in the next couple of weeks. We'll get this going.
All right.
Thank
Thank
All right,
so
you
much.
ladies.
Thanks for having us. Y'all be safe.
Thanks for
you.
coming
Yes,
on. Have a wonderful night, okay?